Your Situation Room, where news and information from around the world arrive in one place simultaneously. Happening now, a conservative clash. Does the right think Harriet Miers is the wrong person for the Supreme Court? This hour, new signs of support and opposition, plus some new poll numbers. Keeping the faith, backers of Miers are eagerly touting her born-again credentials. Will that help get her confirmed, or could it backfire? And life and death, and the U.S. Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts and his colleagues weigh this question: should Oregon allow doctors to help terminally ill patients die? I'm John King, and you're in the Situation Room. Thanks for joining us. Wolf has the day off. Inside Politics just ahead in the Situation Room. But first, let's go back to Zane Verjee at the CNN Center for an update on that mystery illness in Toronto we told you about last hour. Zane?
That mystery illness, John, now has killed 16 people in Toronto, Canada. We had previously reported that 10 people had been killed. Canadian authorities had ruled out bird flu, they ruled out SARS, they ruled out Legionnaire's disease. The truth is they don't really know what it is. They're doing autopsies, but nothing conclusive has come out. Canadian medical officials had said that by day's end they would have more information on what this could be. This was an outbreak, essentially, John, confined to a nursing home in Scarborough on the outskirts of Toronto. Everyone that has died, that has been affected, has been from this nursing home, many of them elderly and having pre-existing medical conditions like diabetes, for example, and other respiratory illnesses. Most of them were in their 80s and 90s, one of them in their 60s. The total number of people infected, John, at least 84. Canadian doctors have said that despite the bad news, the outbreak has been contained. They also indicated earlier that they expected the death toll to rise because of the number of people that had already been infected. Again, though, 16 people dead from this mysterious illness in Toronto. John?
Zane Verjee in Atlanta. Thank you, Zane, for that update. And now we go inside politics here in the Situation Room. This hour, more Republicans have come forward to share their doubts about Harriet Miers' qualifications for the Supreme Court. It may say a lot about the president's choice of Miers or about the state of his political clout. Miers went back to the Hill today to try to sell her controversial nomination. Our congressional correspondent Ed Henry is there and tracking it all. Hey, Ed.
John, you know, this morning Harriet Miers woke up to a blistering column by conservative George Will suggesting that Republican senators should reject her nomination. Then she did come to the Hill. Reaction was very mixed. Not surprisingly, she paid a courtesy call on fellow Texas Republican John Cornyn, and he gave her his endorsement. But basically, White House advisor Ed Gillespie heard an earful when he went behind closed doors with Republican senators for lunch today. Trent Lott saying basically sometimes he believes presidents make mistakes. Lott said that his first reaction when he heard Harriet Miers' name was uh-oh. He said that he remembers voting for David Souter in the first Bush administration. He has regretted it ever since, and that's why he's undecided on this. Another influential Republican, John Thune, told me there's anxiety in the conservative community. He says it's palpable. He says the jury is still out because conservatives have been told before not to worry in the case of Souter and then got burned. Then Senator George Allen, potential presidential candidate, says, quote, I want to be assured she's not another Souter. I asked whether he was disappointed by this pick. There was a long pause before George Allen finally said, I want to afford her due process, wait it out, check out the hearings. Conservatives also may be concerned about what happened when Harriet Miers went behind closed doors with Democratic Senator Pat Leahy. He asked about the fact that Dr. James Dobbs, the influential conservative, has said in recent days that he believes that, in fact, she is pro-life. Here's the answer.
She said, I will be my own person. I'll be independent. Nobody has the authority or right or ability to tell how I'm going to vote. So I said, those who are saying you're going to vote this way or that way, or they know how you're going to vote, are they wrong? She said, absolutely.
Now, after this lunch with Republican senators, though, White House advisor Ed Gillespie told reporters everybody should calm down, that he recalls over the summer when Chief Justice John Roberts first got picked, conservatives were also concerned. They said he was a blank slate. They were reassured in a bunch of conference calls by White House advisors. In the end, as you know, Roberts confirmed with 78 votes. Gillespie would not venture a guess here, but said that Harriet Miers in the end will get wide bipartisan support. But I can tell you a senior Republican aide here on the Hill noted John Roberts is a tough act to follow, and this aide said the White House still has a lot of work to do, John.
And Ed, this tells us a great deal more than just about questions about Harriet Miers, does it? So not that the conservatives are so vocal. The president used to be able to say, trust me.
You're absolutely right. After the last presidential election, now with the president a lame duck, and with a lot of Republicans on the Hill looking at his low poll numbers and looking at their own political security heading into 2006, you're right. They're being a lot more bold about going out on their own. Trent Lott, for example, thinking about running for a leadership position in 2007. George Allen, as I mentioned, possibly running for president. Sam Brownback also thinking about running for president. He's non-committal on Harriet Miers. There are a lot of them going their own way, John.
Ed Henry on Capitol Hill continuing to track this now and in the days ahead. Thank you, Ed. And it's not just on Capitol Hill where there are doubts. It seems increasingly clear that when it comes to Harriet Miers' prospects for an easy confirmation, well, she's no John Roberts. New poll numbers on Miers are just out, and our senior political analyst, Bill Schneider, has been studying them. Bill?
Well, John, our new poll suggests why it might be tougher for Harriet Miers to get confirmed. 44% of Americans call Miers an excellent or good choice. That's fewer than the 51% who said the same thing about John Roberts when President Bush named him in July. The strongest difference is among conservatives. 77% thought Roberts was a good choice. 58% of conservatives feel that way about Miers. Miers does offer something Roberts did not: diversity. But that doesn't matter much to the public. Just 29% say the fact that Miers is a woman makes them more likely to support her. 5% say it makes them less likely to support her. 2/3 say it makes no difference at all.
Congratulations.
People are more concerned about her close personal ties to President Bush. 44% say her relationship with Bush makes them less likely to support her. Only 16% say more likely. As was the case with Roberts, Miers' views on most major issues are not known. That bothers people. But Miers, unlike Roberts, has no experience as a judge. That bothers people too. Miers' supporters say that shouldn't matter. As an accomplished lawyer, she has had other equally valuable experience.
But one of the things that I think is important about her experience is she's represented real people.
Roberts had written and argued extensively about constitutional issues. That helped compensate for the lack of information about his views. Miers does not have the same intellectual standing.
Yes, sir.
Another reason why it would be tougher for Miers: she would replace Sandra Day O'Connor, the swing vote. More is at stake. John?
All right, Bill Schneider, thank you very much. We want to show you now, this is tape of the President of the United States earlier today visiting the Walter Reed Army Medical Center here in Washington. Let's listen.
To our wounded soldiers, every time I come here, I'm amazed by the courage and decency and strength of those who wear the nation's uniform. It is such an honor to be the commander-in-chief of such fine men and women. And I ask for God's blessings on them and their families as they recover from their sacrifice and service. Thank you all.
That is a trip the President makes several times a year, visiting the wounded at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center, the wounded from both Iraq and Afghanistan, the President and the First Lady there. Now back to our developing stories, the Miers nomination on Capitol Hill, and the new John Roberts Supreme Court took on its first major case today. And at least one justice says it may be one of the toughest cases this term. At issue, Oregon's law letting doctors help terminally ill patients and their lives. CNN's Kathleen Koch is live at the Supreme Court and joins us now. Kathleen?
John, the debate in the Supreme Court today was not over whether or not assisted suicide is right or wrong, but whether or not the federal government can use a law designed to stop drug abuse to instead stop what advocates call death with dignity. Outside the Supreme Court Wednesday, advocates of Oregon's assisted suicide law, like cancer patient Charlene Andrews, argued it is a comfort and a choice the terminally ill deserve.
It's all part of the spiritual journey of being able to die with compassion and with dignity.
But opponents believe assisted suicide is wrong and devalues those with disabilities.
It promotes the idea that people that need help would be better off dead. And we don't believe in that. We believe that our lives are just as valuable as everyone else's.
Inside, though, justices wrestled with whether the 1970 Controlled Substances Act gives the federal government the right to stop doctors from giving terminally ill patients a lethal dose of medication. Retiring Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, the critical swing vote, asked whether an attorney general who opposes capital punishment could use the law to prohibit lethal injections. Oregon's assistant attorney general argued that the federal government can regulate drugs, but not how physicians administer them. Chief Justice John Roberts seemed skeptical, asking, quote, if one state says doctors can prescribe morphine to make people feel good or steroids for bodybuilders, doesn't that undermine the uniformity of federal law and make it harder to enforce elsewhere? Solicitor General Paul Clement argued that assisted suicide lacks legitimate medical purpose and so is an improper use of medication and thus a violation of federal drug laws. Today's arguments here in the Supreme Court may be a moot point altogether because of the pending retirement of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. The rules in the Supreme Court are if you are not on the bench when the court is ruling on a particular case, your vote does not count. Her replacement nominee, Harriet Miers, is scheduled to perhaps be on the court as soon as November, perhaps December. But again, even if she were approved, got on the court while it was still ruling on this very divisive case, she would likely have to recuse herself, having been White House counsel, John, when this case was appealed to the Supreme Court.
A good point for us, Kathleen. A busy day at the Supreme Court. Thank you very much. Pushing the faith. Are Harriet Miers supporters advertising the Supreme Court nominee's evangelical conversion? That story coming up in our Culture Wars. Plus, why did one grand jury refuse to indict Tom DeLay on money laundering charges before another grand jury went ahead with an indictment? The latest legal twist in the DeLay case coming up. And later, John Kerry and other presidential hopefuls head where else? To Iowa. That story ahead in our political radar.
Closed captioning hours on CNN, sponsored in part by Freedom, the one application hemorrhoidal cream.
Freedom, the only one application hemorrhoidal cream. Freedom, the only one application hemorrhoidal cream. Freedom, the only one application hemorrhoidal cream.
You may not have the contract to build the next great suspension bridge, or the workforce to dig the next Panama Canal. And you may not be working on the next big sports complex, but your truck could. The GMC Sierra with the available Vortec Max engineered to the highest standard. Professional grade.
I was always going, having to go in the middle of traffic and just starting and stopping, having to go in the middle of a ball game and then not being able to go once I got there, and going at night, going and going. I thought I had a going problem. My doctor said I had a growing problem. It wasn't my bladder. My prostate was growing. I had an enlarging prostate. My doctor prescribed Avodart.
Most medicines only treat symptoms. Avodart, with time, actually shrinks the prostate and improves urinary symptoms.
So I can go more easily when I need to go, and go less often.
Only your doctor can tell if your symptoms are from an enlarged prostate and not a more serious condition such as prostate cancer, so have regular prostate exams. Avodart is for men only. Women should not take or handle Avodart due to the risk of a specific birth defect. Tell your doctor if you have liver disease. Rarely, sexual side effects, tenderness, or swelling of the breast can occur. Call your doctor today. Avodart for your growing problem.
We can't predict the future, but science is working on solutions. CNN's Andy Serwer and Fortune Magazine's Flash Forward. CNN Sunday night, 8 Eastern.
Never plunge again. American Standard's new Champion flushing system with revolutionary flush tower technology. Only from American Standard.
High definition TV. Amazing picture quality.
Things that are good.
High speed internet. Faster downloads.
Things that are great.
Warts. Satellite dishes.
Things that should be removed.
Next. A free library of on-demand movies.
Things you'd give your right arm for?
Yes. HD TV, high-speed internet,
things that are,
free
things
on-demand
that are,
movies.
Things that are Comcast.
Yeah! Oh my God!
Aaron Brown, Anderson Cooper. Newsnight, CNN Tonight, 10 Eastern.
Now, you might expect to hear doubts about Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers from people who don't know her that well, or the president, well, perhaps as. But former speechwriter David Frum was a White House insider who worked very closely with Miers, and he's not happy with her nomination to the High Court. And David Frum is right here in the Situation Room. Why not?
She's not good enough.
Not good enough.
She's not good enough. This is the Supreme Court of the United States. It deserves the best. When there's a Democratic president, it deserves the best Democrat. When there's a Republican president, it deserves the best Republican. And we have the best. And as the president showed with the John Roberts nomination, you can nominate somebody who's intellectually beyond question, who's got strong conservative principles, and the Senate of the United States will overwhelmingly accept him. There is no reason not to send the best we have.
Now, you worked closely with her inside the White House. You are saying that the president's wrong. He said yesterday she was the best qualified. He had the list, the people he passed over when he picked Roberts. Then he went outside. You're saying the president, all due respect, sir, you're wrong.
I don't know how he can say that. And you know what? I don't think there is a conservative in Washington who believes that. I don't think there's anybody in the legal business in Washington who believes that. There are people who will accept this nomination because they support the president, they want to see him succeed. There are people who will oppose this nomination, but I don't think there is anybody who's not in the immediate White House or not in some way obliged to say so, who actively supports it.
You say there's no conservative in Washington who believes she's the best candidate. Here's from Jay Sekulow, who, as you know very well, chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Also, to Christian conservatives, he is viewed as a leading legal thinker, somebody they trust. And he says, once again, President Bush showed exceptional judgment in naming Harriet Miers to the Supreme Court to replace Justice O'Connor.
That's a comment about President Bush. It's not a comment about Harriet Miers. Look, we have got. You just go through the list. You want to nominate somebody who's got a different kind of experience, who's not on the appeals court. That's great. There are a lot of excellent people. He could have named, for example, as Interior Secretary, Gail Norton, a woman, a Westerner, not a judge, but somebody who was Attorney General of the state of Colorado, litigated cases, some very tough cases, great lawyer, fiercely independent. You want to nominate somebody maybe who's a little older. You don't care about getting a 50-year-old. Well, then, pick Ted Olson or Ken Starr.
Well,
they're great people.
Take us inside the White House. You were in those meetings that we can't see. We're not allowed to see, and we're not told much about. Let's say, for example, when the president is having the internal debate and ultimately decided to support a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. Mm-hmm. Harriet Miers involved in those discussions at all, to your knowledge?
Harriet Miers would not have had much to say. Look, she is his lawyer. When he makes the decision, she makes it happen. And she's a good lawyer. But she is not an initiator. She was never a force for anything. She doesn't have views. And one of the things that, in a way, I'm not sure the president...
Well, she doesn't have views. The administration had to take a position on this Oregon right to die case. The administration has supported the state of New Hampshire when it comes to its parental notification law on abortion. Yeah. Does the president turn to her and say, Harriet, what do you think?
I don't think... I'm sure he does turn to her. But I think that she would, and what she's done until now, she's been very good at reflecting his views back to him. Look, that's what they've been saying on the White House talking points, that she reflects the president's philosophy. I think that's exactly correct. She reflects it. But does she share it? Does she absorb it? And can she articulate it in a way that's convincing? The job of a Supreme Court justice is not just to cast a vote. A Supreme Court justice is a voice. You want somebody who's good at getting votes? Put Denny Hastert on the Supreme Court.
David Frum, help me then understand. You were in the inner circle of this White House at some key moments in history, helping the president decide what to say to the American people in the world after 9/11, key moments in the war on terror, State of the Union, convention speeches. If you think this is a missed opportunity, that the president blew it, why? What does it say about George W. Bush, not about Harriet Miers?
Well, presidents make mistakes. I don't know what it says about the president, but I think at this point it says he was not making a good decision that day. And I think sometimes he gets rattled, as any president does, and maybe he's defensive, and maybe he wants to flex his muscles, and maybe he's mad at conservatives for not having gone along with the Gonzales nomination. But it doesn't matter what his motive was. This is not a good enough choice. And we've got some better rules about how these things are done. There aren't going to be filibusters. There are going to be up and down votes and open debates. But I think Republicans should ask some really searching questions. They should put Harriet Miers' views on public display. There aren't articles. There aren't records. She has not taken an active role in legal philosophy. Ask her to explain herself. And if in the end you are not convinced this is the very best that the Republican Party and the conservative legal world have to offer, let's go find somebody else because we have some excellent people.
Stunning criticism for a man who sat very close to this president in the Oval Office. David Frum, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there division among Democrats when it comes to Harriet Miers? I'll ask Dick Durbin, one of the top Senate Democrats. He joins us next, right here in the Situation Room. Plus, we'll tell you why Washington's getting ready for the Royals. Stay with us. You're in the Situation Room.
Big people, little people, older people, younger people. All kinds of people need medicines but don't have prescription coverage. It's personal to them, so it's personal to us. That's why we offer help at Pfizer Helpful Answers, with all kinds of programs to help all kinds of people get the Pfizer medicines they need. No matter what your age or income, if you don't have prescription coverage, you can save on Pfizer medicines. You may even get them for free, depending on your income. So call us at 1-866-706-2400 to get personal help. One call for your Pfizer medicine and for your family's medicine. Call Pfizer Helpful Answers at 1-866-706-2400 or visit PfizerHelpfulAnswers.com. Because if you don't have prescription coverage, now one call fits all. Pfizer participates in the Partnership for Prescription Assistance, a way to get help paying for your other medicines.
It's the time of the season when love runs high in this time.
Moving your 401ks to Fidelity is groovy. Our retirement specialists make it so easy, they'll even do most of the paperwork. You dig? Call 1-800-FIDELITY. Smart move.
What the world needs now is the only thing that there's just.
Your call will be answered in 30 minutes.
My car ready yet?
Whatever happened to customer service? At DHL, it's alive and well.
Come on.
Call us and see how we're changing the way the shipping business does business.
So?
Another ball player has been implicated in the ongoing investigation to steroid use. According to sources, the player, who has not been named, testified before the grand jury on Tuesday, and an indictment is
Hey, Joe, did you give me those headshots?
In your inbox.
Go ahead.
By the end of the week. It is, of course, just the latest blow to pro sports, which has seen a number of scandals in the last year.
While some conservative Republicans are raising red flags about Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers, many Democrats, at least so far, are holding their fire. And some even have pretty nice things to say about her. We're joined now by a member of the Judiciary Committee and the number 2 Democrat in the Senate, the Minority Whip, Dick Durbin of Illinois. Congratulations on the White Sox victory. I'll give you that one up front. Different result tonight, we hope. Your Majority Leader, Harry Reid, says she's okay, at least so far. Let's listen to the Majority Leader. I want to ask if you agree with him.
I just understand the broad outline of this woman, and the broad outline looks really good to me.
A little confused, Senator Durbin. We just had a White House insider, David Frum, here saying he thinks the president blew it. The Majority Leader says looks pretty good to me. The Minority Leader, I'm sorry, says looks pretty good to me. You agree with Senator Reid on this one?
Senator Harry Reid has a very positive impression of Harriet Miers. He knows her better than I do. He has not committed himself. He said that he wants to wait until she answers the important questions about the issues that she'll face on the Supreme Court. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying something positive on a bipartisan basis to start this important process.
I want to take you back a bit to the Roberts hearings. You asked a question of then Judge, now Chief Justice Roberts, that some Republicans found objectionable. They thought you were trying to explore his religious views. And Senator Cornyn at the hearing said this: "We have no religious test for public office, and I think anyone would find that sort of inquiry if it were actually made offensive." Now, I know at the time you said you weren't trying to explore his religious views, but I'm wondering, given that criticism of you, do you find it at all ironic, maybe I can't find the right word, that the White House is going out of its way now to find friends of Harriet Miers from this evangelical church in Texas to say to conservatives, hey, trust us?
It's interesting how a different nominee changes the standards around this town. I wasn't looking for any religious test. I never would. I respect the Constitution and the separation of church and state in our country. But there are so many issues that are both personal conscience issues and also political issues. And if you ask a person about their position on the death penalty, it may cross both lines. So that's an example. And when it came to Judge Roberts in a Supreme Court hearing, it was Arlen Specter, the Republican chairman, who asked the first question about whether Judge Roberts' religion would cause any problems for him as a Supreme Court justice. It's a legitimate inquiry as long as it doesn't go too far and too deep. Each of us respect a person for their religious beliefs. It should never be a disqualification from office.
One of the issues that frustrated the Democrats in the Roberts hearings is certain to come up again, perhaps even more so because Harriet Miers has not been a judge. So we don't know much about her. There's not much of a paper trail. And Democrats already are saying, let's see some of the memos she's written to the president while she's been involved in White House policy making, including the last 5 months as the White House counsel. The president says no. Let's listen to the president.
It is important that we maintain executive privilege in the White House. That's part of the deliberative process. That's how I'm able to get good, sound opinions from people. And so, you know, I'm sure they're going to try to bring this up. I happen to view it as a distraction from whether or not Harriet Miers is capable of answering the questions she's asked. You can ask all the questions they want. It's a distraction from whether or not she'll be a good judge.
With so many Republicans, Senator Durbin, saying they also have questions, do you think you'll have any more luck this time at getting Republican help in pressing for documents?
I'm really concerned. You know, Harriet Miers was the coach for many nominees and told them to say as little as possible. Now, with no judicial background, and of course that's not a requirement to be in the Supreme Court, but with no judicial background, we can't turn to decisions that she's made on a court level or things that she's written as a judge to really get an insight into her thinking. So they say, well, trust the fact that she's worked in the White House for so many years. And many of us say, fine, let's see some of the documents that reflect her thinking on important issues. Say, no, we can't give you those documents. If we run into the same situation as we did with Judge Roberts, where he didn't answer so many key questions, and we can't get documents about her background, how can we make an informed judgment about a lifetime appointment to the highest court of the land? It's a problem.
Well, many senators, you well know, say this is even more important because it's the O'Connor seat, the swing seat. You will get more than one, but if you had just one question of Harriet Miers, what would it be?
Well, I think what you basically want to ask her is some kind of insight into her view of the broad expanse of law. Let me just be specific. The right of privacy really goes to the heart of our basic personal freedoms. Are there certain areas of our personal and family conduct that are out of bounds for the government where we should make that decision as individuals, members of families, married people, that we make these decisions, the government cannot get involved? That, I think, is central to the line of questioning that's important to me.
I want to quickly change subjects, Senator, take a little extra time here. The President gives a major speech tomorrow. What the White House says is a major speech for strategy in the war on terror. I'm reading, just handed to me, a pretty damning letter you sent to the White House saying that the President simply hasn't leveled with the American people, that he does not have a political strategy to end the insurgency. The President's going to give a big speech tomorrow. Let me ask the same question. What one question would you like answered?
Well, let me just say, John, America can do better when it comes to the war in Iraq. As of 10 o'clock this morning, the Pentagon told us we've lost 1,942 of our best and bravest soldiers. Almost 15,000 have been seriously wounded. The question I would ask the President is this: if only 1 battalion out of 100 of Iraqi forces are ready to stand and fight, how long will it take us, and how many battalions have to be ready before American soldiers can come home? For years we've been promised we're just getting the Iraqis ready to defend themselves. But sadly we find ourselves in a predicament where we're losing our best and bravest soldiers, continuing to lose them every single day.
Senator Richard Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, thank you for joining us, sir, in the Situation Room. Congratulations again. I'm hoping to turn the tides, and the good Sox, the Red Sox, will come back in this series.
Go White Sox.
Take care, sir. Now our Zane Verjee joins us now from the CNN Center in Atlanta with a closer look at other stories, not the sports news, making news. Zane?
John, new evidence that the forces of nature know no boundaries. Now, these are pictures of a wildfire that began in Mexico. It has since jumped the border and now burns in Southern California, not far from San Diego, where 500 acres in the United States and 1,000 acres in Mexico are scorched so far. Firefighters believe the blaze originated as a structured fire but ignited dry brush, and it spread really quickly. Iraqi police say a suicide bomb went off today inside a Shia mosque 60 miles south of Baghdad. The bombers set off the explosives around 5:30 p.m. local time, killing at least 25 people. Dozens more were injured, and part of the mosque itself was demolished. It happened during services for a Shia Muslim killed in another attack. Iraq's National Assembly has reversed last week's election rules change that would have made its newly drafted constitution a shoo-in. The body bowed to both internal and international pressure and voted overwhelmingly to change the language back to its original form. The move last week was criticized by the United Nations. Iraq's Sunni minority had also threatened to boycott the crucial October 15th referendum. And a spokesperson for Britain's royal family says Prince Charles and his wife Camilla will make their first official visit to the United States together in early November. They plan a tour that includes New York, Washington, D.C., as well as San Francisco. While in Washington, they're scheduled to join President and Mrs. Bush for lunch and dinner at the White House. John?
Zane, do we know anything else about their schedule? Maybe a visit to the Situation Room? Anything else?
Maybe. We're trying for that. We actually don't know so many details. They're citing security reasons, so we don't know the specific dates of when they'll be here or exactly where they'll be staying. We know that they will not be staying at the White House. They may go down to Ground Zero in New York City, visit that. They'll be meeting with the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. And this also just coming into CNN, they will meet with Jack Cafferty for tea, scones, and some email.
That.
Where is he?
That, we don't know where he is. Maybe he's getting ready. He's learning how to make tea. Take care, Zane. Grumblings on the right about Harriet Miers. How should the White House sell its Supreme Court nominee? We'll explore that with Paul Begala and Babe Buchanan in our strategy session. Also ahead, new information in the case against Congressman Tom DeLay. Why did one grand jury refuse to indict him? Yet another did.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Wagner. You ever have one of those mornings where your back hurt or you realized you'd tossed and turned all night long? Yeah, well, I used to too. But then I found the Sleep Number bed by Select Comfort. And right now, with one simple phone call for this free DVD or video and brochure, you can learn all the details about this amazing bed. Nothing compares to the deep, restful sleep you get in the Sleep Number bed. And it's because with the touch of a button, you can personalize your comfort to your sleep number. Mine's a 35. You can change the firmness as often as you like and independently on each side. For couples, it's like having your very own bed, but together.
I like the fact that on the Sleep Number bed, we can have our own separate levels of firmness. I like a little bit firmer bed, and Scott likes a little bit softer bed, so we can adjust it separately to meet each of our needs.
I absolutely love my Sleep Number bed, and I'm not alone. In clinical studies, 89% reported better sleep quality and 93% improved back pain.
On the Sleep Number bed, I found that I was able to sleep through the night and wake up and not have that lower back pain.
The Sleep Number bed cradles you in comfort with air chamber technology that contours to your body, providing better support for a good night's sleep. It's an affordable luxury that looks and costs the same as a traditional innerspring mattress, but it is twice as durable and long-lasting. From day one, I have been so happy to have found this bed, and I really believe it can help you get a good night's sleep too, so please give us a call.
Call 1-800-609-9100 for your free information kit with DVD or video, brochure, and price list. There's only one authentic Sleep Number bed, and it's Consumer Digest Best Buy. Call 1-800-609-9100. Ask about our risk-free 30-night in-home trial. Sleep Number beds are easy to own. Queen-size sets are as low as $20 a month. Discover why over 3 million have switched to the Sleep Number bed by Select Comfort. That's 1-800-609-9100. Call now.
Mortgage is a big deal. So is being treated fairly. That's why eLoan has no lender fees, has fought for the strictest privacy laws in the industry, and treats you with respect. Check out our current monthly mortgage options. Those are just some of the revolutionary ways we're changing the lending industry. eLoan. Radically simple.
CNN's American Morning helped these people start a new you revolution. Now, 10 months later, Dr. Sanjay Gupta checks up on them. American Morning, CNN, all next week, 7 Eastern. Sponsored by 3 new flavors from Total.
Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers is a born-again Christian. And if you didn't know that already, her supporters want to make sure you do. In our Culture War segment today, let's talk about Miers' religious background and how it's being promoted with CNN faith and values correspondent Delia Gallagher. Delia, Miers' faith getting a lot of attention appears to be exactly what the White House wants. Why is that?
Well, of course, as you know, John, this is a Supreme Court nominee who does not have a judicial record. And so one of the ways that you can convince conservatives of her conservative credentials is by letting them know about her faith. And she is a woman who was very involved in her church down in Texas. And so this is very important, of course, in terms of understanding who she is, but not necessarily in terms of how she will vote. Nonetheless, gives some indication of who Harriet Miers is in the absence of a judicial record.
And you've been trying to poke around to get more details, more information than simply the fact that she's an evangelical Christian. Tell us what you know.
Well, it's a very interesting story, actually, because she was born a Catholic, and then she had a conversion experience when she was in her 30s, and that's the kind of baptism, reborn, born-again Christian evangelical experience when you have a full immersion baptism. And one of the people that was instrumental in this was the Texas Supreme Court Judge Nathan Hecht. And I spoke to him earlier, and he confirmed that, yes, she had this personal conversion experience, a way to sort of deepen her faith, and he brought her into this church in Texas, Valley View Christian. He said, of course, that she is pro-life, and he said that she is pro-life, but you cannot extrapolate from that how she will decide certain cases. Broadly speaking, I spoke to the pastor of this church. He said, yes, this is a church which is a pro-life church and pro-family church, and some of those Christian values, of course, would be something that their members may adhere to, yet he said there's no test for membership. So again, we're sort of extrapolating some of her personal views based on what the community believes, but as Judge Hecht pointed out, even though he would call her pro-life, he says you can't extrapolate from that how she would vote on any particular issue.
Any reluctance of her friends from the church to talk about this? It's quite interesting because during the context of the presidential campaign, people use the term Christian conservative, and often you hear objections from the community saying they're somehow being, that it's being used as a pejorative.
Well, absolutely not. The surprising thing, I talked to several members of that community. They all love her and say she has been very involved in that community for 30 years. She converted in June of 1979. They reiterate that she's a sort of very quiet background person and yet very involved. And so there was absolutely no reluctance on anybody's part to say. Now, whenever you're dealing with Christian churches and Christian beliefs, there is a broad spectrum of what members can believe, but on the whole, it's very Bible-based. I asked the pastor also about his views on creationism versus intelligent design versus evolution, and he said they might go more for a sort of intelligent design creationism idea. But, roughly speaking, these are Christian concepts that many members of Christian communities and the evangelicals would adhere to.
Delia Gallagher, inside information on a fascinating subplot to the Miers nomination. Thank you, Delia.
Thanks, Tom.
And coming up, the case against Tom DeLay. Is the indicted congressman getting helped unintentionally by the prosecutor? The latest legal turns in our strategy session. And does Rudy Giuliani miss the campaign trail? We'll tell you what the former New York mayor says ahead in our political radar.
Homeland security isn't just politics, it's personal. Don't you want to know what's going on out there? CNN Security Watch, the most reliable news about your family's safety and security every day, only on CNN.
Safety is a beautiful thing, especially when it's beautiful. The 2006 Volvo S60.
I'm not a computer person. I'm a people person. But people are complex. 2,000 diseases have the same 3 symptoms. For me to help, I've got to know things like test results, charts, histories. So, I have this computer. It tells me everything I need to know, and I carry it everywhere. So I guess that makes me a computer person.
Start something caring. Start anything you like with a world of software and devices that run on Windows.
Great taste. Great taste. Less filling. What do we look for in a recruit? Well, you need skill. On the field of beer, there's no time for hesitation. You have to be quick. You may have only seconds to spot a nut Miller Lite. You gotta have substance.
Great taste, ever quit?
This is not a job for the weak. Personal style, very important.
Roughing the palate! Roughing the palate!
Finding one with all the right stuff, well, that's just rare, isn't it?
Work on that left hand.
Thanks for the dress, Mom.
Simple, everyday moments can be the perfect time to talk to your kids about not smoking, so you don't have to plan a big discussion.
There's a dragonfly on one of the rollers.
Just your leg? A little moment will do just fine. Talk to your kids about not smoking.
Smoking cigarettes can hurt your game too.
They'll listen.
Don't worry, Dad. I won't.
For conversation starters, log on to philipmorrisusa.com.
If you're a homeowner with an adjustable rate mortgage, what happens to your monthly payment if the rates go up again? That's a great reason to lock in a low fixed rate loan from Ditech.com. The total lender fee is just $395. Call 1-800-71-FIXED.
On our political radar this Wednesday, Bill Clinton is promising Mississippi residents the millions of dollars he's helping to raise for hurricane relief will be used where it's needed most. The former president has been spending the day touring devastated neighborhoods along Mississippi's Gulf Coast. He views Katrina damage in Alabama this afternoon. Former Democratic presidential nominee John Kerry is heading back, where else, to Iowa to touch base with party activists as he weighs another White House bid in 2008. Kerry heads to the leadoff presidential caucus state Sunday to help raise funds for local candidates. Other potential White House hopefuls are following his lead. 5 other contenders expected to visit Iowa this month. It's the corn. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani says it's too early to say whether he'll run for the White House. But the Republican said today he does plan a return to politics. A hopeful sign, no doubt, for his supporters. Giuliani talked about his future in a speech to credit card companies. Selling Harriet Miers. How does the White House push its Supreme Court nominee to skeptics on the right and the left? I'll ask Paul Begala and Babe Buchanan next in today's strategy session. And later, growing fears about bird flu. We'll get a house call from our resident doctor, Sanjay Gupta.
CNN Primetime tonight at 8.
I'm concerned about what an avian flu outbreak could mean for the United States and the world.
He's concerned. Should you be? What would happen if the avian flu hit the U.S.? Worst case scenario. Tonight 8 Eastern on CNN.
Don't wait for the most exciting news video. Get it now from CNN.com. The most dramatic stories, the video everyone will be talking about, all free. Go to CNN.com and click on Watch. Free video on CNN.com. Get the full picture.
No one wins this race alone. Only a skilled, finely tuned team can stay on course, no matter what the conditions. We put the right people on your side to help you meet your financial objectives. Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
Carefully consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Call your advisor for a prospectus with this and other fund information. Read it carefully before investing.
They say he's a newsman on a mission. He gives both sides a fair shot. These days, who can you trust? Lou Dobbs tonight. CNN tonight, 6 Eastern.
Let Empire Glass replace your cracked windshield, and we'll give you 24 free dinners to Sherry's Restaurants, where you'll enjoy great food and delicious pies all day, every day. And we offer free mobile service to your home or office. So for the highest quality windshields and 24 free dinners to Sherry's, call Empire Glass today at 503-251-9881. And remember, when you think glass, think Empire.
Oregon business owners and managers have found a new alternative to old-fashioned, high-priced, classified help-wanted ads. They're using PortlandJobFinder.com to find and hire smart local employees. PortlandJobFinder.com is easy to use. Just click on Post a Job and start saving time and money. There are no deadlines and no waiting for tomorrow's newspaper. Find the job applicants you need fast by placing your next help-wanted ad on PortlandJobFinder.com. It's free for job seekers and good for business.
Shopping for a new home? Did you know that in the time it takes you to drive to just one house, you could visit 100 without leaving your home? Coldwell Banker Barbara Sue Seal Properties introduces a better way to shop. Find your new home on TV or online, anytime. Hundreds and hundreds of dream homes are now just a click away. On Channel 15 or at cbseal.com. Coldwell Banker Barbara Sue Seal Properties. Discover the joy of home shopping from home.
Portland's top talent takes center stage on Dick's McKenzie Ford Gimme the Mic, presented by Comcast. One singing superstar will drive off in a 2005 Ford Escape from Dick's McKenzie Ford. Next time, Anthony, Zach, Tiffany and Nathaniel compete in the semifinals along with Courtney, CJ, Clarice, and Michael. Saturday, October 8th at 10 on News Channel 8. Or watch it on your schedule with Comcast On Demand.
Brown, Anderson Cooper. Newsnight, CNN Tonight, 10 Eastern.
Strategy session just ahead, but first, our Zane Vergy joins us now from the CNN Center in Atlanta with a closer look, other stories making news. Zane?
John, health officials are baffled by a mystery illness that's killed 16 residents of a Toronto, Canada nursing home. But they say they're confident the outbreak's under control and may be over before they even identify what's causing it. The outbreak has struck 70 residents, 13 employees, and 5 visitors at a single facility. Tropical storm Tammy is off Florida's Atlantic coast right now. The storm, with top winds near 45 miles an hour, is about 20 miles northeast of Daytona Beach. Tammy is the 19th named storm of this very busy Atlantic hurricane season. The storm's expected to soak parts of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina with drenching rains. And there's a bit of a new twist to tell you about the Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes romance. Stick around for the next hour of the Situation Room, and we'll tell you why they and their families are so happy. John?
Gonna make me wait for that?
Yeah.
I don't think I have a choice anyway. No. Thank you, Zane. One is facing deep legal troubles. The other faces intense legal questioning. Both have ignited big stories here in the Beltway and beyond. Republican Congressman Tom DeLay and, of course, the Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers. Here to discuss both of these stories, two of our CNN analysts, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, Republican strategist Babe Buchanan. Before we get there, a quick update on the story we'll talk about first, Tom DeLay. You know, of course, about the first indictment that forced Tom DeLay to step aside as the House Majority Leader, charging him with money laundering, essentially, campaign finance violations in Texas. And you know, as we reported extensively in the Situation Room yesterday, about another indictment of Tom DeLay, additional charges, the prosecutor going back to the grand jury essentially to get a new indictment with new charges. What we are learning about today is in between, there was a third grand jury, and that grand jury declined to indict Tom DeLay. A member of the grand jury quoted in news stories as saying they laid out the evidence and the grand jury decided against initiating charges against Tom DeLay. So this one gets even more and more curious. Paul Begala, this is a prosecutor who, in the eyes of many, even Democrats who think Tom DeLay is corrupt, is making, as Tom DeLay's attorney said on this program yesterday, the Keystone Cops look pretty organized.
Well, let's wait and see what happens in the court of law. You know, in Texas, you don't prove the case in the indictment. You just charge. It's not a very lengthy document, a very detailed document. But I think politically, where I'm on safer ground, I mean, I went to law school in Texas, but my dean used to say, if you want to hide something from Begala, put it in a law book. Okay, but politically, I think DeLay's got more worries, less worries rather, with Ronnie Earl and the Democrats than he does with Roy Blunt and the Republicans. They have moved into this vacuum. You know, what did Shakespeare say? Jan Cassius has a lean and hungry look. Such men are dangerous. He may not have a job to go back to, even if he somehow beats the rap on these charges.
Well, Babe, what about that? The legal issues will play out, and
Sure,
DeLay's attorneys think they have a pretty good case. We'll see how that works out, as Paul says. Politically, will he have a job to come back to? Should he have a job to come back to?
The key is timing here, John. You know, if they can get this thing quashed in just a few weeks, I think he has enormously loyal compatriots up there on the Hill. They are, in essence, holding the spot. There are several of the top leadership people who literally said, you're part of our team, we're holding the spot for you. If you can get this thing taken care of quickly, we'll put you back in. His problem is, come January, the time is up because those congressmen know we're facing an election.
Well, let's stay on this point. I'm not sure if he's a fan of Shakespeare, as you are or not, but Representative Mark Foley, Republican of Florida, says this in the Hill newspaper. There's a lot of turmoil in the leadership, and we're watching closely. I'm not sure it will happen overnight, but this is a competitive business, and people are looking for openings. I thought Tom DeLay was the guy who built up so much loyalty, so many favorites, raised all this money for people. That didn't last very long, did it?
Well, you know, again, there is 4 or 5 people who are powerful who are saying we're going to block any kind of effort to fill this spot with someone else. However, come January, there's enough stirring going on up there. They want a new guy. They want an election. If DeLay is not back in that spot by January 1st, I think he will never see that position again.
Don't you, as a Democrat, want Tom DeLay back in that spot next year?
Exactly. The Democrats ought not hang their hopes on Ronnie Earl convicting Tom DeLay in a courtroom in Texas. I think they actually stand a better chance in the election running on a reform agenda in 2006. Now, that means Democrats actually have to be for reform and not simply say we'll replace Republican lobbyist corruption with Democratic lobbyist corruption. I mean, they actually have to have some meat behind that. But, there are some, my old pal Rahm Emanuel from the Clinton White House, now a congressman, who has a package of reform legislation. He's going to use that. He's also chairing the Democrats' campaign for the Congress.
Shameless Rami plugs.
Yeah, but he's going to have people running on that reform agenda.
And there's no question, call it reform, and we see it as the issue for next year that you all are hoping for is cronyism and corruption. You keep delay at the top of the ticket. You've got the Abramoff investigation. That could be another shoe. There's certainly no evidence of that, but you never know. And so do Republicans take that risk by putting delay back up there?
Let's talk about what, at least at this point, seems like it could be a hangover issue, a carryover issue, and that is this confusion, or worse, within the conservative movement over the President of the United States right now. It is manifesting itself in the nomination of Harriet Miers. I want to read you something from Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis Schlafly, president and the founder, of course, of the Eagle Forum, very respected among Christian conservatives especially, says this in the Washington Post. Bush is building his own empire without regard for the conservative movement or the party. People expected him to move the Supreme Court away from its activism. And there is nothing in Miers and Roberts to show that he has moved the court 1 inch away from where it is. You agree with her?
No, I happen to think Roberts is a better candidate than she did. But on the issue of Miers, I agree with her entirely. I think the president has made a terrible, terrible mistake. As a conservative, and talking to conservatives all day long for the last couple of days, I can tell you they are not happy. They do not feel any need to support her. He has managed to unite conservatives. You have out there George Will and Bill Kristol and David Frum and Pat Buchanan and Phyllis Schlafly and Terry Jeffrey.
He said he would be united, didn't he?
Yeah, he's done it. We're all against her. We think that the senators need to ask her tough questions. We don't feel that she's qualified. That's where he has a real problem.
Do you worry, though, that the Democrats are getting suckered on this one? I mean, we were joking a bit earlier. Every team, it has a star pitcher, but it also has a bullpen. So what? What if she's just a consistent conservative vote, but not an intellectual powerhouse? Now, I don't know her well enough to say whether or not she's, but so what? If the president gets a good conservative vote for 25 years, why is that so dispiriting to conservatives?
I'll tell you what the problem is. First, we do believe that it's a Supreme Court and she should be qualified, but the second one, we don't believe she is. But the second point here is it's a gamble. We're not sure, all right? And we've got millions of unborn children whose lives depend on this. And do we gamble with that? And we say, look, we've got this qualified group over here, about 30 of them, who we know will make certain that they do the right thing, and we don't have to gamble. So we've got to see. Hopefully, she'll step down, and we put one of those absolutes.
It's a gamble for the Democrats to think the conservatives are right, and this is David Souter.
That's right. I think just the fact that Babe Buchanan does not support Harriet Miers doesn't mean that Teddy Kennedy should. And I think the Democrats would be wise to kind of keep their powder dry. I think you saw Dick Durbin, you interviewed him, very ably, by the way. He kept his powder dry. He didn't give any kind of a commitment on where he would be. This is, I think, for conservatives, a tougher deal. It's a faith-based nomination. Trust me. And I think Democrats would be better off going where Bae is at qualifications. Look, the truth is she got nominated for the Supreme Court the same way George W. Bush got into Yale. Right? She knew somebody in the Bush family. It's connections, not qualifications. You couldn't say that about John Roberts. You could say it about her.
Should the Republicans, you mentioned Dick Durbin in my adequate interview with Senator Dick Durbin. His point, the Democrats are going to make is, let's see the paper trail. Let's see, since she hasn't been a judge, let's see what she's written. Let's see memos she's given to the president. Now, the only way they're going to get those memos is if the Republicans say, give them up, Mr. President. Should they?
I don't think they will, because then there's going to be another fella coming down the track here, and we're not going to want to do that. So I don't think we should do anything that we wouldn't want to do and have done for a Roberts or Ludig or any other a judge. So the key here is, though, to ask her the questions. Ask her what her knowledge is. Ask her questions that will let us know, is she knowledgeable about the history of the court and the big cases and what they really mean for society as a whole.
We're out of time, so I need a quick yes or no from each of you. Do you actually think it is possible that the President of the United States, with a Republican Senate, a Republican president, could lose this one?
I think she could be pressured to pull her name by conservatives. If she gets to the question I would want to ask her, though, ask her under oth. Why did she tell David Frum that George W. Bush was brilliant?
I need a yes or a no from her. You're a lawyer.
I think if it goes to a vote, she'll be confirmed, but I think it may not go to a vote.
Well, I was close to a yes or a no. She's the talk of the blogs. Next, we'll find out what they're saying about Harriet Miers when we get the situation online. And later, searching for answers in that deadly boat accident. Why did a tour boat packed with seniors capsize over the weekend?
Closed captioning provided by Head On, the new headache treatment applied directly to the forehead. Head On. Introducing a new headache treatment applied directly to the forehead. How fast do you want relief from your headaches and migraines? Head On. It's safe and it really works. In stores now.
For years, E-Trade was alone, standing outside, throwing stones at the financial establishment, challenging the ordinary. Now that we've matured, we're doing it from inside. E-Trade Financial combines banking, trading, and investing so you can make the most of your money. Be maximized. Visit etrade.com and be extraordinary.
The medicines, the plastics, the materials, things that make modern life modern come from one place, chemistry. Learn more at AmericanChemistry.com.
We look out for each other. We do it without thinking, without reward. It's what we do. And that's why there's more help coming from Medicare. New prescription drug coverage. With it, everyone who is eligible for Medicare can be covered for the prescriptions they need to stay healthy. But all of us should learn more about it because choices must be made. And we can help each other because that's what we do.
What the world needs now is the only thing that there's just.
Your call will be answered in 30 minutes.
My car ready yet?
Whatever happened to customer service? At DHL, it's alive and well.
I'm on it.
Call us and see how we're changing the way the shipping business does business.
So these are the
I
roads.
think I'll have the special.
You don't have a special.
So what can I get you?
I'll have the special.
Rules of the road. You're one of the
Don't go there.
dopes for whom they were made. The rules of the road.
No.
Then suddenly this, the end
Nice place.
of the road.
I think I'll do a cannonball. Don't do a cannonball.
Fairfield Inn. For travelers who know.
CNN Tonight, Atlanta hostage hero Ashley Smith and purpose-driven life author Rick Warren. Did God pick her to make the accused courthouse killer surrender? Ashley Smith and Rick Warren take your calls. Larry King Live, CNN Tonight, 9 Eastern.
This just in to CNN. A top Pentagon analyst with expertise in the Middle East affairs pleaded guilty today to giving classified information to an Israeli embassy official and to members of a pro-Israel lobbying group. During his court hearing outside Washington, Larry Franklin said he was frustrated with the government and had hoped his communications would help influence U.S. policy. It doesn't happen often. A Republican president typically bedrocks support among conservatives, seeing his Supreme Court picked apart by some of those fellow conservative. Harriet Miyer's nomination is getting many unexpected comments. Internet reporters Jackie Schechner, Abby Tatton are here looking at the blogs. Ladies.
Well, we're actually going to start with Abby on this one, John. She's got the article that everybody's talking about.
That is the George Will column. Yeah, we've been talking here about the conservative blogger reaction over the last couple of days to the Myers nomination and how strongly negative it's been amongst a lot of them. Well, last night they found that they had an ally in conservative columnist George Will, whose post here, his column at the Washington Post, has everyone talking in the blogs. Joe Gandelman writes at themoderatevoice.com, this is a centrist blog. He summed it up like this. Perhaps one of the most devastating columns ever written about the president by a Republican during his whole term. And perhaps for that reason, that's why everyone is talking about it. This site here, memorandum.com, aggregates all the bloggers talking about a certain article at any one point. And this one has been at the top all day, this column. Lots of people on the left and the right, pretty much balance the people talking about it. On the right, not everyone agreeing, but there's certainly a lot of them. Patorico.com, this is an LA prosecutor on the right who blogs regularly about legal issues, saying George Will nails it. I wholeheartedly agree. Others seem to have undergone a conversion. This is acepilots.com, who at first was relieved by the Myers nomination, another conservative, now saying that after reading this column, it's hard to say anything good about this nomination.
Some of the conservatives who don't agree with George Will, for example, Paul and John over at Powerline blog, Dobbs.com. Paul saying we shouldn't presume because Bush picked her that she's qualified, which we shouldn't presume the opposite either. John's argument is that Will is way off base here, that she is well within the realm of qualified candidates. The Senate, it would be improper for them to reject her. As for the liberals, what are they saying? Well, the article itself only tangentially skewers Myers. In fact, it is a harsh repudiation of President Bush. From a site called the Peking Duck, they are calling George Will one of the godfathers of American conservatism, and they are saying, John, that if he has broken rank, you know that there is trouble for President Bush.
Abby and Jackie, thank you very much. It's 5 p.m. in Washington, and you're in the Situation Room, where news and information from around the world arrive at one place simultaneously. Happening now, it's 2 p.m. in San Diego, California, where it's man against the elements. Right now, crews are battling a fire that began in Mexico, then jumped the border. 1,500 acres are gone so far. It's 5 p.m. here in Washington, where many are wondering the probability of mass deaths and the possibility of quarantines. What may sound like a fictional plot is a very real fear of a bird flu epidemic. And it's a CNN exclusive in the war on drugs. Agents tracking down dealers, confiscating their source of profits. We'll take you inside the campaign to keep drugs out of your children's hands. I'm John King, and you're in the Situation Room. Thanks for joining us. Wolf has the day off. We begin with a developing story. High winds and low humidity. Conditions could hardly be worse for crews fighting a wildfire that started in Mexico, then jumped across the border into Southern California. Right now, officials are considering ordering evacuations. For more, we're joined on the telephone by Roxanne Provoznik with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Roxanne, what can you tell us simply right now about the scope of the fire and how many firefighters you have out there trying to bring it under control?
Right now, the fire is 1,500 acres. 500 of that is in the U.S. We've got about 235 firefighters working the incident.
When you talk about it on the border like that, what is the coordination with Mexican authorities, and is this something you practice, or is this something you're dealing with on the fly today?
We have mutual aid agreements with Mexico, and when we originally saw the fire, it started in a structure and spread from that structure into the brush and then started threatening the U.S. border. We have agreements with them that we can actually go into Mexico and help work on the fire, and that's what we did. We sent engine companies in. They tried to work on the fire, but with the winds, the conditions we're having right now, it was just a little bit too much for us to handle, and it quickly spread to what it is now.
And do we know anything about any injuries, anybody at risk?
Reported injuries, but they are doing a precautionary evacuation on the south side of Highway 94 between Barrett Junction west to Summit Road. And again, it's not an immediate threat, but in case the fire does continue to progress and gets worse, we want to make sure those homeowners are ready to go at a moment's notice.
And we're talking to you from the East Coast, obviously a little after 2 o'clock out on the West Coast. When do you face a decision in terms of issuing more broader evacuations, and what would be the complications there in terms of how close is this to, say, major highways, residential areas?
Well, right now, being along the border, it's a fairly remote area, but if it does increase, it's going to be threatening more structures. And hopefully it's going to run into some old burns that we've had in previous months and years, and that'll slow the fire down. We'll take advantage of any situation that we can to try to get the upper hand on it.
And you mentioned the mutual aid, the cooperation between the U.S. firefighters and the Mexican firefighters. Does that include U.S. firefighters crossing to the border south, Mexican firefighters perhaps crossing to the border north?
Yes, it does work both ways. If we have a fire that's in America that is threatening down there, the bomberos can come across and they can take action on our fire to put it out before it becomes a problem for them.
Roxanne Provoznik, thank you for that information on this developing story in California this afternoon. We wish you and your crews the best of luck with that fire. And CNN's Tom Foreman is standing by with us here in the Situation Room to give us an idea of just where this fire is and the problems it could pose to those firefighters. Tom?
Well, this kind of fire out in west, as we said earlier on, can grow very, very rapidly. A few years ago, all along this area, on the Mexican border and north, they had a series of fires break out 2 years ago in October. 13 people ended up dying in the process, and one of those fires exploded by 10,000 acres in 6 hours. So that's why you have to watch these things very closely. Let's take a look at what we've got right here. This is the area we're talking about. If we fly in here to the coast, I'll show you where the fire is. First of all, let's talk about the populated areas. You asked about this earlier on. Generally, on the U.S. side of this, not a heavy population. This is Imperial Beach, which is the area you'd most see as a a population zone right around the U.S. side of it. But if we turn around here and we take a look at the fires themselves, as we fly in, you see this area is not heavily populated right down to the border. A little bit going on, but not a lot. Fires up on top of this hill. However, if we go right across the border, that's when we get into Tijuana. And if you look at this, Tijuana, the metropolitan area, about 2 million people. And those houses do go pretty well up to the border here. We've talked about this before. Roads like this and like this are natural fire breaks that firemen work with all the time. But if you move from this part of Tijuana over here, you can see tremendous number of houses clustered right up to the border here. And that's why you have to watch this, because with this explosive nature of these fires, as we talked about, you can have them start leaping back and forth. And of course, the fire doesn't care if there's a border or not. They do care if there are roads and rivers. That's why you have to keep it under control, because on this side, you got all of this growth. Over there, less, until you start talking about right over here, which is near the famous border crossing that we've always talked about. Over here, you see much more on the U.S. side. So we've got to watch them.
Can we get a sense from these pictures? In speaking to the California fire officials, she said they were pondering evacuations, waiting to see if they could get a handle on this. How quickly, how far do we have to go before you come into some areas where you have significant residential populations?
Well, obviously on the Tijuana side, you've got a lot right here. You've got some right down here. This is closer. Again, I mentioned the border crossing. This is the one you always see in news coverage of the cars all backed up forever. That's over here. North of here is San Diego. Little towns all along the way. As you know, Southern California, a hugely, very densely populated area. So part of the problem this time of year is frankly this. These fires start exploding October, this time of year, when everything's dry. A lot of it lightning strike fires. Even when you start moving people, other fires are breaking out. That's what they've been dealing with in California. They get this fire under control, and 3 hills away another fire breaks out. Has nothing to do with the first one, but they have to deal with it all. So obviously, if you start evacuating people, you know, we looked at this with a hurricane. Right. Evacuating people works when you have time. When you don't have time and you have 2 million people, it just doesn't matter. You can't move them.
Tom Foreman, thanks for your help keeping track of this developing story. Some amazing pictures. So far, no indications of any major injuries or worse. Now, tens of millions of people killed by the Spanish flu. Why scientists are looking to that pandemic for clues to the bird flu threat. I'll talk to the co-author of an alarming new study. Also, the conservative split over the president's pick for Supreme Court justice. We'll show you what Harriet Miyer's critics are saying, and reports of a surprise turn in a closely watched celebrity relationship.
Lots of Wi-Fi users work in coffee shops, which aren't always the best places to work. Wouldn't it be great to work wherever you wanted instead of only in hotspots? Now you can with Verizon Wireless Broadband Access. Wi-Fi only works in limited locations, while Broadband Access is the nation's largest high-speed wireless broadband network and is expanding coast to coast. Now get unlimited access at a great price, so you won't get stuck in a not-so-hot spot. Verizon Wireless, we never stop working for you.
I'm always here, working. A low profile on the high plateau, vanishing in the shadows of the buttes. Bred to be nature's neighbor, reaching miles deep for energy America needs. A natural gas well, meeting the demand in harmony with the land. With still more to explore.
Oh, well, the rally monkey jumping up and down, and everybody dancing all around. You can feel that magic when the angels play.
Ball game over. Angels win it.
I live for this.
Watch the World Series on Fox. Don't miss it.
If you're a homeowner and you need cash, call or log on to ditech.com and take the Ditech Challenge. We'll guarantee you the lowest rate and fee and help you to consolidate debts and lower your payments, even if your credit is less than perfect. Call 1-800-80-DITECH.
I'd like to redeem my credit card miles. No.
Okay. Oh, Chubsy, come on. The answer's always no! That's right. Ow. No! I'm not hearing it. No! No!
Go from no to no hassle with Capital One No Hassle Rewards. There are no blackout dates. Check your mailbox for details.
I should have worked at Capital One! What's in your wallet?
No! Homeland Security
isn't just politics, it's personal. Don't you want to know what's going on out there? CNN Security Watch, the most reliable news about your family's safety and security. Every day, only on CNN.
CNN, October 16th. Health and NASCAR. What it takes to train, drive, and survive when man meets machine at 180 miles per hour. NASCAR, driven to extremes. CNN, Sunday night, October 16th, 10 Eastern.
A prize-winning author once said, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some hire PR officers. Right now in Washington, many are wondering which is which for Harriet Miers, President Bush's little-known pick for the Supreme Court. While some supporters embrace her nomination, other conservatives are either wary or openly against it.
Those of us who know her have a great deal of confidence in her, and those who do not yet know her, I think they will learn why. Those of us who do have confidence in her.
A vote of confidence in Harriet Miers from a leading conservative and fellow Texan, John Cornyn. But many others on the right are not convinced, including some of Cornyn's Republican colleagues on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who of course get the first crack at voting on Miers' nomination. Senator Sam Brownback and Tom Coburn are reserving judgment. Brownback is openly skeptical about Miers' views on abortion rights and whether she shares the conservative goal of overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, former Majority Leader Trent Lott also is weighing in, saying he's not satisfied with what he knows about Miers and her qualifications.
I know her heart. I know what she believes. Remember,
despite the president's pitch, columnist George Will questions whether Mr. Bush's judgment can be trusted and whether Miers' nomination can be justified. In the Washington Post, Will writes, "It is not important that she be confirmed because there is no evidence that she is among the leading lights of American jurisprudence or that she possesses talents commensurate with the Supreme Court's task. The president's argument for her amounts to trust me." Will joins a host of other conservative activists and pundits going public with their view that Mr. Bush came up short, to say the least, with his choice of Miers. Now, there are, of course, some conservatives who are backing Miers, including James Dobson, who focus on the family, the Christian Coalition, and the group called Progress for America. Still, the voices of opposition may be troubling to the White House. Joining us now to discuss this, White House Communications Director Nicole Wallace, perhaps known to some of our viewers as Nicole Devenish, now the happily married Nicole Wallace. Nicole, let's just start with that simple, stunning development to see this was the conservative president. The conservatives trusted him throughout the first term, trusted him early in the second term. The president's trust me argument is simply not selling right now.
Well, our party is the party of ideas, and our party is the party of principle, but our party is sometimes a little uncomfortable with the unknown. And I think this is a president who has never swung and missed when it comes to appointing judges at all levels that strictly interpret the Constitution. And now, you've had a lot of experts on your air, but the grassroots Republicans out there share this ideal as much as any inside the Beltway elite conservatives. And if you ask them what they care about a court that is humble, a court that strictly interprets the Constitution and does not make new laws from the bench, and they trust this president to put the most qualified person on the bench. And I think there's a little bit of an indictment out there that someone from inside the fraternity and the exclusive boys club of elite schools and the monastery of the appellate court wasn't selected. But just because this wasn't what some elites had predicted doesn't mean it isn't an incredibly exciting moment for our party and for our White House and for the court.
But what does it tell you about the political weakness, if you will, at the moment of the president, George W. Bush, that conservatives are so willing, some even eager, to question his choice right now? And as you answer, I was just stunned. You mentioned you're calling this the boys club, but a member of your club, David Frum, was on the program a short time ago, and he said maybe he should have named her Secretary of Transportation, but she just doesn't have what it takes for the Supreme Court.
You know, Daniel Frum, or David Frum, or whatever his name is, has now spent more time on your air than he ever spent in the West Wing. I don't know where he forms his judgments of Harriet Miers, but he doesn't know Harriet Miers. George W. Bush does, and George W. Bush is a man of his word who ran 2 times on a commitment to putting people on the United States Supreme Court who will strictly interpret the Constitution and not make new laws from the bench. And I can't wait to see people like Senator Brownback in 24 months wave around Miers' opinions and feel so proud and so happy that we have a court that has moved in this direction that everyone really has hoped that it would. So I think with the Roberts nomination that Harriet Miers was so instrumental. People have no idea that a White House counsel is critical in helping presidents make decisions about judicial nominations. So she stood at the president's right arm, right hand as he made his judicial appointments. And again, he has never misfired when it comes to appointing judges who do exactly what our conservative critics want them to do.
Given that, you're saying the president has never misfired. This president is known as someone who can bristle when people criticize him, especially when he thinks it's simply off base. What has he said in the last 24 to 48 hours when you sit around in those strategy sessions in the White House saying, how do we deal with the fire from our own party? What has the president said about it? Is he mad?
Well, you've covered this White House long enough to know that we don't do a lot of navel-gazing or second-guessing around here. We're very proud of our nominee. Harriet Miers is someone who sets the pace and who is frankly way out of the league of some of the people like Daniel Frum that have been on the air criticizing her. He should keep his fights with hacks and flacks like me. But look, we're very proud of getting to put two extraordinary justices on the Supreme Court who both believe, as the president does, in judicial restraint, and really are celebrating the opportunity we've had to make two historic nominations to the court. We also have a president who is very busy. He's working very hard. He's been to the region that was devastated by not one but two hurricanes, and is working with the Congress to help the Gulf Coast get back on its feet. And we also continue to work to fight and win the war on terror. So it's a White House that is humming along, as you know we always do.
Well, one of the PACs, whatever we want to call them, we call them analysts here, you can call them what you will, but one of our analysts recently on with this hack, we were talking, Baby Buchanan says she thinks it's a possibility.
I call myself a hack, hack and a flag.
I will join you. She said it's a possibility if the conservatives don't quiet down and get in line. She saw it as a possibility that Harriet Miers would raise her hand and say, never mind, and withdraw from consideration if the conservatives don't turn down the volume. Well, any chance of that happening?
Well, she's a smart lady, and I think anyone that knows Harriet Miers and anyone that's been lucky enough to be represented by Harriet Miers through her 30-year career in Dallas legal circles and through her 5-year incredibly distinguished career here at the highest levels of the United States government knows that this woman doesn't back down from a fight.
Nicole, you mentioned the White House humming along. Of course, you know the polls would suggest a bit otherwise. Many Republicans say the reason they're asking these questions is because there are some Republicans trying to distance themselves a bit from the president. Before the hurricanes, before the Roberts and the Miers nomination, it was the Iraq war that was hurting the president's political standing. A big speech from the president tomorrow, strategy in the war on terrorism. Many are saying they want new information about an exit strategy. They want a better explanation of why we're still going to have more than 100,000 troops in Iraq more than 2 years into this war. What will the president tell us new tomorrow?
Well, we certainly recognize that our party and frankly all leaders in Washington do best when they have the most recent information. And I think what we'll seek to do tomorrow is take a step back. And we've spent 4 years, I think, as Americans becoming quite familiar with Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and the terrorist network that attacked us on September 11th. But I think that the terrorists have evolved their strategy, and the president will talk a little bit about militant extremists who now have a loose network that spans across the globe. And I think we all are saddened when we see attacks like the Bali attack and the attacks in London. But we don't take a lot of time to step back and talk about and think about and understand how they're all related and how best to protect ourselves from this very determined enemy.
We will look for that speech tomorrow. Nicole Wallace joining us from a very familiar spot to me on the north lawn of the White House.
We miss you.
You look good there. Take care, Nicole.
Thanks, John.
All right. Coming up, the toll climbs in a medical mystery. 16 people now dead, all linked to a Toronto nursing home. Health officials desperate for answers. Plus, Tropical Storm Tammy. High winds and heavy rain. We'll get the latest forecast just out from the National Hurricane Center.
Closed captioning hours on CNN, sponsored in part by Capsaicin HP, raises your level of relief.
When I hit the ball, the pain hits me.
Capsaicin Cream. Stronger relief each time you use it.
I can't feel the pain. I'm stunned.
Capsaicin. Relief beyond belief.
Introducing the new 2006 Cadillac DTS. With the Northstar V8 and the world's fastest reacting suspension system, you are in control. The new Cadillac DTS. Cadillac.
through.
That's a new brand of shoe, huh? Yeah. How you like your shoes?
I love them.
Shoes are good, huh? Everyone's wearing them. Who makes those shoes?
Well, Avante.
Excuse me. Do you think I could use your computer for a quick second? Okay.
At Ameritrade, we understand traders. That's why we give you the tools to spot, analyze, and seize the market's many possibilities.
Thank you.
Ameritrade, where internet equity trades are $10.99. Join now and get up to 35 free trades and $100 cash.
Great shoes, huh? Yeah.
Go to Ameritrade.com/spot or call 877-447-8330.
Is that a new sports drink?
They say he's a newsman on a mission. He gives both sides a fair shot. These days, who can you trust? Lou Dobbs tonight. CNN tonight, 6 Eastern.
Find exactly the new car you're looking for. Search actual inventories across the U.S. or within a few miles online at VX.com. Just click Auto on Comcast.net.
Good evening. At 9:17 this morning, the future arrived years earlier than predicted. The future. What is it?
High-speed internet. Faster downloads.
It's a video mail.
Digo, gracias futuro, puedo detener la televisión en vivo y
I mean, until the aliens get here, I'm happy with the, with the high def. The movies on demand.
There's the future, and then there's the future.
Well, which
and
one
this,
are we?
This is the future.
The future of television and internet is here. It's Comcast.
Prepare for the future. Flash forward. CNN Sunday night, 8 Eastern.
I want to update our viewers now on a developing story. We're tracking that mystery illness. Zane Vergie joining us now from the CNN Center in Atlanta. Zane?
As you know, John, we've been tracking this story all afternoon, and we're getting more information now. 16 people are dead in all. Dozens more have fallen ill. In total, there are some 88 cases of those infected, 70 residents, 13 employees, and 5 visitors to the nursing home. Nearly 36 people are in hospital right now. And Canadian health officials don't know what's going on. They have yet to figure out what exactly has hit them. They've ruled out bird flu. They've ruled out SARS as well as Legionnaire's disease. Most of the victims of this mystery respiratory illness are elderly residents of a single Toronto nursing home. The majority of cases are said to be improving, while some others have actually worsened. Toronto's top health official is saying they don't know, as I said, what it is, but they are confident that the outbreak itself is now under control and limited only to that nursing home. A microbiologist working to isolate the illness says that its spread may be over even before they're able to identify it. There have been no new case reported, John, in the past 24 hours.
Zane Vergie in Atlanta. Thank you, Zane. And bankruptcy filings are spiking, with thousands of Americans rushing to get their paperwork done in the next 2 weeks. CNN's Ali Belshi has the bottom line on why from New York. Ali?
Hey, John, really are spiking. Take a look at this. We have had the numbers in from last week on the number of bankruptcy filings. 68,000 bankruptcy filings last week. That's an average of 13,000 a day. In the month of September, bankruptcy filings were averaging about 10,000 a day. A year ago, they were 6,000 a day. Why so many? Because on October 17th, a new law comes into effect, the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act of 2005. This is effectively going to make it a little harder for people to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. That's personal bankruptcy. Now, one of the changes in this new law is that people who want to file for bankruptcy will have to take credit counseling for about 6 months heading into that. You can't run up your credit card bills in anticipation of it. The rub is that it's going to make it a little tougher for people to, A, file for bankruptcy, a little more expensive to do so, and not everybody who files for bankruptcy is going to get all of their debt erased. Until now, you could, in certain circumstances, get most of your debt erased if it wasn't student loans or taxes or things like that. Now, let's just talk about why this is. It all ties into what we've seen in the markets. Personal income is a big issue in America. Personal income is your income minus your taxes, and that gives you your disposable income. And I think we've got something here. If you take your disposable income and you subtract everything you spend, you've got your personal savings rate. Now, John, as you know, Americans have a negative personal savings rate. Once you get your income and you take everything out that you spend, the average American is not only left with nothing, they're left with debt. The average American carries $12,000 in debt because the world of credit has been turned on its head. Money is cheap. It's not a bad thing to be in debt. And now as interest rates start to rise, people get a little bit worried about whether they're going to have a job or not. Consumer spending starts to turn down. And things get more expensive, you start feeling the pinch. More people are declaring bankruptcy. Even if you don't look at this law, a year ago in September, 6,000 people a day were filing for personal bankruptcy. So this business about things getting more expensive all around is hurting people. John, the one thing to remember is that more than, well, maybe not more than half, but most bankruptcies, personal bankruptcies, are triggered by healthcare costs.
All right, Ali Velshi with the Bottom Line in New York, and when you talk of personal savings, I'm keeping that nickel handy. Thanks, Ali. Still to come, preparing for a pandemic. If the bird flu flew over the U.S. borders, could the country's health system keep it under control? And later, the latest surprise in the celebrity romance between Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. You're in the Situation Room.
How can one company help create stronger, lighter, safer, quieter vehicles and support research into new energy sources to run them? By using the right chemistry. Improving the things we all need is a great journey. And it's ours. Dow. Living. Improve daily.
To help your business succeed, at UBS, we give you all the resources you'd expect of one of the world's most highly awarded global investment banks. But to understand what your business really needs, we bring something more to the table. We work with you, like it's the world's most powerful two-person financial firm. You and us, UBS.
Congress chartered Freddie Mac 35 years ago to make mortgage money available so lenders can make more home loans. Our mission? Help keep mortgage rates stable and low. It's working. Freddie Mac has helped over 44 million families own their own home. It's the most important investment millions of Americans ever make. Some people call it a nest egg. Most people just call it home. Freddie Mac. We make home possible.
My name is Rose Neville. Well, I've lived alone in this apartment for 20 years now. I retired 8 years ago, and these days, I'm enjoying the little things in life. I want things to be simple. I always got my Social Security checks in the mail. I depend on that money, so I was always worried whether it would be there. A few times the check was late, and I count on that money to help pay my bills. Then a friend of mine told me about Go Direct.
Go Direct lets you deposit your Social Security check directly into your account. Just call 1-888-514-6347. Nice people will answer, and you can sign up in just a few minutes.
I'll always have to think about money, but Go Direct takes at least one money concern away. Now I'm free to go out, visit my children and my grandchildren without waiting for my check to arrive.
Call 1-888-514-6347 to sign up for direct deposit of your Social Security check. Go Direct. Sponsored by the U.S. Treasury.
A new forecast just out from the National Hurricane Center for Tropical Storm Tammy. Let's go straight now to CNN meteorologist Jackie Jarris in the CNN Hurricane Center. Jackie.
Well, Tammy is making its run for the coast as we speak. In fact, it's just offshore of the Jacksonville area. It has gained some strength today. Maximum winds are now up to 50 miles per hour, but the big story here is going to be the rainfall. It's been quite heavy throughout much of the day from Jacksonville extending on northward. We're going to zoom in there and show you. There's the center of circulation, not very well defined. It's going to slow down a little bit as it heads on up to the north and to the west, and we are expecting it to move move towards Georgia. The Georgia coastline has been getting pounded all day long, and there's a very heavy area right near the state border that's going to be heading towards Brunswick very shortly. There's also a risk of a few tornadoes developing with this storm system. We're going to go ahead and show you, there's the radar composite. The storm really has been getting bigger throughout the day today, and the tropical storm force winds extend out 175 miles from the center of the storm, but most of those are well away from the center, so we're only getting gusts along the Florida coastline around 20-30 miles per hour. It's going to be moving to the northwest through the night tonight as a tropical storm down to a tropical depression towards Atlanta late on Thursday. John?
Jackie, thank you very much. Now a threat some experts say is more contagious than the Ebola virus and smallpox, the deadly bird flu virus. There's no drug proven to stop it. So if it did land here in the United States, would quarantines of large areas be a viable option? Our senior Pentagon correspondent Jamie McIntyre has more on that. Jamie?
Well, John, now that the president has revealed that he wants to use the U.S. military possibly to stop a future epidemic or enforce a quarantine, a lot of questions about how that would happen.
Worst case, a mutant strain of avian flu that can be passed from person to person hits America's biggest city, New York. The president orders active duty and National Guard troops to seal the island of Manhattan, closing the airports, including Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia, and shutting the city's numerous bridges and tunnels. It's a scenario not unlike the one depicted in the 1995 movie Outbreak.
Your town is being quarantined. We got 19 dead. You got 100 more infected. It's spreading like a brush fire. What are you talking about? If one of them's got it, then 10 of them have got it now.
But how practical is the idea that any city, much less one with as many ways in and out as New York, can be sealed by military force?
How do you possibly limit the flow of people and goods in and out of a city like this? New York needs to have food brought in. It needs to have other things brought in. You need a certain amount of crossing of the perimeter, or the city becomes uninhabitable.
The reality is, these days, a quarantine is more likely to attempt to limit movement of infected people by screening passengers at airports, confining sick people to their homes, and banning large gatherings of people where the infection can be spread. What the military brings is the same things it brought to hurricane relief, logistics and manpower, especially medical facilities, and the ability to move them quickly and operate without support. Where the issues get thorny is the Hollywood scenario. Combat troops strong-arming, possibly shooting desperate victims of a natural disaster.
It would be an ugly thing if we had to use the military. Nobody in the armed forces would relish the thought of imposing some kind of a martial law-like environment on their own fellow citizens, especially on law-abiding citizens who had done nothing criminal.
One problem that needs to be addressed in the federal government's pandemic response plan is protecting the first responders. Normally, they'd be vaccinated ahead of time, but since there's no vaccine for avian flu, at least not yet, that means taking other measures to prevent exposure. John?
Jamie McIntyre, thank you very much. We want to turn now to continue this discussion. Dr. Jeffrey Taubenberger, he's a pathologist, just mapped out the killer flu of 1918, and there are frightening parallels, he says, between that flu, which killed 100 million people around the world, and this avian flu we're tracking right now. And we want to bring into the conversation, mostly to help me, our senior medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is in Atlanta. Doctor, I want to start with this premise. You say it's eerily familiar. So from that parallel, are there lessons to be learned from 1918 that help you today?
We think that there are. We're trying to understand how it is that influenza pandemics happen. So influenza viruses are present in wild birds and domestic birds, farm animals, humans. These viruses move around between species, and we need to understand how that happens. And the last two pandemics we know about were mixtures of human and bird flu viruses. But we think the 1918 virus was an entirely bird-like virus that learned to adapt to humans. So we think they're really important lessons for what's going on right now in Asia.
I want to bring Sanjay Gupta in to join the discussion. Sanjay?
Yeah, Dr. Taubenberger, one thing that's sort of striking is that everyone says this will be a really bad flu if it not only kills a lot of people, but also is easily transmitted from human to human. The question is that a totally random process, or is there some way to prevent that from mutating into this killer flu that we're talking about?
Right. Now, we think that it's really important to understand the genetic basis of how a virus would switch hosts. So how would you go from a virus adapted to being in birds to a virus that's adapted to human beings? And we think that the the 1918 virus and looking at other viruses are going to help us work out those mutations. What particular changes are necessary to allow it to move between species? So what we hope ultimately is that lessons from 1918, in a sense, could be used as a checklist for our surveillance to help us prevent a pandemic from actually occurring ultimately. If we actually learn these rules, we might be able to prevent a strain from fully acquiring all the traits it needs to be human adapted.
And you know, the thing about it is as well, is you're developing a vaccine. Everyone says if the virus keeps mutating, how can you develop a vaccine that's going to work? I mean, the virus could have totally changed by the time the vaccine is actually developed. So how do you beat that?
Well, that's always the big problem with flu, because as you know, it does mutate so rapidly, especially in response to immune pressures. So the key is to try to find the strains that are emerging before the development of the vaccine, actually. And if you had some lineage, the first hope would be to try to stop it from happening in the first place. But if you failed in that, at least have some clue as to what the best strain would be to make a vaccine as rapidly as possible.
I want to ask both the doctors, if you will. This has been discussed quietly within the government, within the medical community, but in the last 48 hours, it is getting huge coverage in the news media. Many Americans probably hearing about it, at least as a serious pandemic threat for the first time. First, to you, Doctor, what should they do? And Sanjay, jump in. I assume you're getting emails from our viewers saying, what is this?
Well, when we say bird flu, I mean, what the concerns are specifically of these H5N1 strains that have been circulating in Asia for the last 7 years that are highly pathogenic for chickens and other birds, but also have killed a number of people in several countries. And so the first thing to say is that there's no evidence that that virus has spread into North America or the United States. So far, the outbreaks have occurred in Southeast Asia, but there is some concern that the virus might be spread by migrating birds to other parts of the world. So what everyone needs to do is of course, pay attention to what public health officials are saying.
Yeah, and John, I mean, one thing, the right answer to this question about how bad is this is we really don't know. I mean, the two things that make this virus particularly bad is if it's a killer, and we know that it is. It kills about 1 in 2 people that it infects, and it's also easily transmittable from human to human. We don't know if this virus is going to mutate into being a virus that can be spread easily from human to human. If it is, then I think everyone is going to stand up and be concerned about this. If it isn't, it may be something that just sort of fades out over time, John.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta for us at the CNN Center in Atlanta, Dr. Jeffrey Taubenberger here in the Situation Room. Thank you both, and I suspect we will continue this discussion many times in the weeks and months ahead. No, thank you. Thank you, and stay with CNN, our Dr. Gupta, for continuous updates on the bird flu situation. And still ahead, the tour boat tragedy. Did the weight of the passengers help cause that boat to capsize? We'll have the latest on the investigation. Plus, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. What could make their Hollywood romance even more of a spectacle? We'll tell you right here in the Situation Room.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Wagner. You ever have one of those mornings where your back hurt or you realized you'd tossed and turned all night long? Yeah, well, I used to too. But then I found the Sleep Number bed by Select Comfort. And right now, with one simple phone call for this free DVD or video and brochure, you can learn all the details about this amazing bed. Nothing compares to the deep, restful sleep you get in the Sleep Number bed. And it's because with the touch of a button, you can personalize your comfort to your sleep number. Mine's a 35. You can change the firmness as often as you like and independently on each side. For couples, it's like having your very own bed, but together.
I like the fact that on the Sleep Number bed, we can have our own separate levels of firmness. I like a little bit firmer bed, and Scott likes a little bit softer bed, so we can adjust it separately to meet each of our needs.
I absolutely love my Sleep Number bed, and I'm not alone. In clinical studies, 89% reported better sleep quality and 93% improved back pain.
On the Sleep Number bed, I found that I was able to sleep through the night and wake up and not have that lower back pain.
The Sleep Number bed cradles you in comfort with air chamber technology that contours to your body, providing better support for a good night's sleep. It's an affordable luxury that looks and costs the same as a traditional innerspring mattress, but it is twice as durable and long-lasting. From day one, I have been so happy to have found this bed, and I really believe it can help you get a good night's sleep too, so please give us a call.
Call 1-800-609-9100 for your free information kit with DVD or video, brochure, and price list. There's only one authentic Sleep Number bed, and it's Consumer Digest Best Buy. Call 1-800-609-9100. Ask about our risk-free 30-night in-home trial. Sleep Number beds are easy to own. Queen-size sets are as low as $20 a month. Discover why over 3 million have switched to the Sleep Number bed by Select Comfort. That's 1-800-609-9100. Call now.
Closed captioning provided by dermatologist recommended Sarna anti-itch lotion.
Are you caught in a vicious cycle of itching and scratching? Get Sarna lotion. Soothing Sarna contains 2 medications to stop itch fast. Suffer no more. Get dermatologist recommended Sarna lotion.
Quick update for you in the latest pictures of a story we've been tracking throughout the past several hours. Brush fires, they began in Mexico, have jumped across the border into Southern California in the United States. You see the fires burning here. Several hundred firefighters now trying to bring them under control. Those firefighters on both sides of the border. In fact, California officials say in some cases crossing back and forth over the border. More than 1,500 acres at risk here, 500 of those acres in the United States at the last update. We will continue to track this story throughout the day, bringing the latest here on CNN. And while on that subject, let's look at some helpful resources on the fire on the internet. Our internet reporter Abby Tatton here for that. Abby.
John, that fire then threatening San Diego County along the border with Mexico right there. Looking at this site from the USDA, this allows you to track online current fire activity in the United States. You can see the area there of Southern California that we're currently talking about. Specifically, San Diego in California, the area there in pink, this site now is from NOAA, from the National Weather Service. You can see the area in pink highlighted that is currently under a red flag warning. That's because there are strong winds out there, which means that the fire could threaten part of this county. This is an area that we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks with that other fire, the Topanga fire that was northwest of LA just last week. You can see this area here shaded in red. That's a high potential fire activity right now. John?
Abby Tatton, using the internet to keep track of that fire. Thank you, Abby. Federal investigators are on the job in Lake George, New York, trying to determine why a tour boat capsized on the lake Sunday, killing 20 elderly passengers. The question they're asking today, did passenger weight, play a role in the fatal and tragic accident? Here's CNN's Mary Snow.
Well, John, investigators are looking at a number of factors, but they also are trying to do the math. Statistics show in general Americans are heavier, but also the formula used to calculate maximum weight constraints and how many passengers are on board is outdated. Now investigators want to know if that contributed to the Ethan Allen capsizing.
Investigators call it scientific road tests. By simulating conditions on a boat similar to the Ethan Allen, they hope to determine if the passenger's weight played a role in the capsizing of the vessel. Current standards assume that the average person on a tour boat like this weighs 140 pounds. The National Transportation Safety Board says the standards are outdated.
Back in when this vessel was created, the rules were 140 pounds. Back in 1966. Clearly people are a bit heavier today.
After a water taxi accident in Baltimore that killed 5 people last year, the NTSB says it recommended to the Coast Guard that maritime weight standards be increased to an average of 160 pounds for each passenger. The Coast Guard says it's looking to update its rules set back in 1960 and hired a contractor a few weeks ago to do just that. In a statement, the agency says the standards weren't changed immediately after the NTSB recommendation in 2004 because, quote, it's something that takes a long time. We need to look at the various impacts on different types of boats and different types of industries. One industry that has changed its weight standards is airlines. That happened after a small commercial plane crashed in Charlotte in 2003, killing 21 people. Airline industry officials say the cause was a flight control rigging problem, but weight played a role.
It really just exacerbated an already bad situation. What we saw, though, was that the aircraft was, I believe, tail heavy, and as the nose started to rise, the pilot didn't have the flight control authority to push the nose over and hold the airplane level.
The FAA has added 10 pounds to its weight standard for commuter aircraft, now assuming 185 pounds for each passenger and luggage, 195 pounds in winter when people wear heavier clothes. For airlines, weight is not just a safety issue. It affects the bottom line.
For example, on a 200-passenger airplane, if we've got an additional 10 pounds per passenger that are factored into our analysis, we're talking about 2,000 pounds that we cannot carry that would otherwise be revenue-generating cargo.
Now, the NTSB says it's been conducting tests throughout the day, including tests on a boat similar to the Ethan Allen, putting about 8,000 pounds on it. That's 50 passengers weighing 160 pounds each. John?
Mary Snow tracking the investigation for us in New York. Thank you, Mary. Lou Dobbs, of course, getting ready for his show coming up at the top of the hour. Lou, tell us what you're working on.
John, thank you. At 6 p.m. Eastern here on CNN, we'll be reporting on an astonishing security breach by illegal aliens at one of this country's most sensitive and supposedly secure military bases. Also, the Supreme Court considering the very difficult issue of whether terminally ill patients can end their own lives. My guest tonight is a woman fighting terminal cancer, testifying before the Supreme Court. She says the federal government should respect her right to die when she chooses. And we'll be talking with one of the world's leading economic thinkers and social critics who says globalization is dead. John Ralston Saul will be our special guest here tonight. Please join us for all of that and more at the top of the hour. Now back to you, John.
Thank you, Lou. And up ahead in the Situation Room, a CNN exclusive. A growing drug epidemic taking a toll on children, innocent bystanders in a national crackdown. Plus, a celebrity surprise, reports of a major development for Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes.
I promise.
I promise.
I promise. The all-new Chevy Impala gets an estimated 31 highway miles per gallon.
Malibu LS with 32. Cobalt LS, 34.
And a Aveo with 35.
I promise that Chevy Tahoe has best-in-class fuel economy.
We even took a Silverado and created the first full-size hybrid pickup truck.
I promise fuel economy is just as important to Chevy as it is to you.
That's a Chevy Total Value Promise.
CNN Tonight. Hostage hero Ashley Smith and purpose-driven life author Rick Warren. Did God pick her to make the accused courthouse killer surrender? Larry King, CNN Tonight, 9.
When is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When you're more than 20 pounds overweight and every diet plan has failed. Now there's Leptoprin.
Specifically developed for the significantly overweight, backed by a United States patent, a double-blind published clinical trial, and an ironclad 100% 30-day money-back guarantee. Leptoprin is simply the most powerful, clinically proven weight control compound available, period.
If you're one of those people who constantly worry about 5 or 6 vanity pounds, Leptoprin is not for you. Leptoprin is much too expensive and much too powerful for the casual dieter. But if you're one of the millions of Americans who are 20, 30, 50 pounds or more overweight, you need Leptoprin.
So when is a diet pill worth $153 a bottle? When it works, really works.
Isn't it time you tried Leptoprin? Call 1-800-858-8221. 1-800-858-8221.
Baseline to baseline. Forehand to backhand. Slam to slam. Nobody covers tennis like ESPN and ESPN2. We're all over the clay, grass, and hard court scene. Serving up the top players in the world wherever they play, all season long.
Tennis on ESPN and ESPN2 is brought to you locally by
Pacific Continental. The right back.
Gonna throw into the end zone. Touchdown. Navarre looking at the corner. Intercepted.
The 10 to the 5 to the house. Touchdown.
And this is why you play the game. Riley's got pass. He does. Great catch. Has still on his feet. Blocked. It's blocked. Picked up. The ball is still loose. Touchdown, Oregon.
Step through a hole now. Step to the outside. Now cuts back to the inside. Now goes to the house. Touchdown.
Catch Oregon College Sports on CNW 14.
Prepare for the future. Flash forward. CNN Sunday night 8 Eastern.
U.S. drug authorities are struggling to contain the growing methamphetamine epidemic. Our Brian Todd recently had exclusive access as authorities in southern Michigan took part in a nationwide sweep aimed at shutting down meth labs. He found that behind the drug's obvious toll on users, children are also paying a price.
We approached the house in a government helicopter. Our DEA contact says agents have just seized a suspected methamphetamine lab. Our first view from the air, it looks like a nice house in a pretty setting, with police, fire crews, and hazmat teams swarming. Agents say this scene is typical, an obscure house in the middle of the countryside. When law enforcement teams entered this house not long ago, they say they found an active meth lab, the drug still cooking. They didn't find the suspect, but there was a large family inside, including 4 children.
Why don't we go over and sit by the bike, okay?
The children seem to think it's an adventure that includes shedding their clothes, decontamination, and donning of scrubs. Some don't have much clothing to begin with. These children could have just been exposed to some meth-making ingredients that would literally make your head spin. Aside from the cold medication ephedrine, throw in a type of ammonia, phosphorus, and strong solvents like acetone or starter fluid, sometimes brake fluid. Just some of the toxic ingredients heated during the cooking process. One veteran police officer has seen what it does to children.
The chemicals line the walls, they line the ducts, the air ducts in the house, and that's all those chemicals these children are breathing. And it will affect them for the rest of their lives. They'll have respiratory problems, they'll have health issues, they'll have, ADD.
That's if they avoid another hazard.
If you have any scratches in your glassware, stuff like that, the whole thing can go up on you, which results in fire.
This man, who we'll call Joe, is a former meth addict and trafficker who's now a police informant. For more than 20 years, law enforcement agents say he'd sell to anyone, not much caring if families like this were on the periphery.
I've been a predator my whole life.
Now that he's been turned, detoxed, and cooperating for about 3 years, does he have any remorse?
Yeah, I wish I hadn't got caught. Would I still be doing it today? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Back at the house, the owner, who we call Susan and who gave us permission to take pictures, tells police the suspect they were looking for had rented a room from her. She says she had no idea he might have been cooking meth.
Why are you scared?
Because I don't know what's going to happen. And the house is torn apart now, and I don't know where he's at, and I know he's here.
Are you afraid that he might come back and do something to your family? Inside, law enforcement agents in protective suits have had to take swift action just to ventilate and try to get the fumes out.
And broke out the glass doors, opened the windows so we could ventilate the fumes out of here.
Later, we pressed Joe a little harder about children caught up in this epidemic.
Shame on those people that would put their children in jeopardy.
Anything else you can say about that? Because we saw a lot of them.
Well then, just them. I got no use for them.
Small consolation to these children, leaving a home that one agent says may have to be condemned.
That's tough. Brian Todd joins us now live. You brought something along to signify what the toll is on kids exposed to this.
John, they come across kids so often in these raids that one officer in the Detroit Field Division of the DEA came up with this kit. On his own, he just made this up. He gives this to children whenever they come across it. It's called a child decon kit. First, you've got to pull out this chart, which actually gives a law enforcement officer kind of a primer on how to deal with kids at these scenes. Then they each get a set of scrubs that are child size. You can open it up, and they have sizes of these things that fit kids that we saw in the piece. They just outfit them with this because the toxic chemicals are so horrible that the kids have to shed their clothing. Then they give them a stuffed animal. They give all this stuff to these kids in these kits so that they make the experience a little less traumatic for the children who are involved in this. And the DEA now is thinking about it, just making this a piece of standard equipment because this is happening all over the country.
That's an interesting response to a sad, sad problem. A great look at that over the last few days. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And just ahead, how about this description of the dangerous home intruder? It had beady eyes and a very long tail. Coming up, what happens when the crook is really a crocodile? Sounds like a job for the crocodile hunter, and you'll meet one right here after the break.
Tiananmen Square, April 1989. It began peacefully. Beijing University students mourning the death of a former government leader who supported the student movement for democracy. But the students' memorial turned into a people's protest that lasted nearly 6 weeks. Wang Dan was one of the student leaders.
I saw the power of the people at that moment. It's a really big power of the people. This is the first time in the history of the Republic of China that people go to the street without allowance from the government.
The Chinese government imposed martial law at the end of May. But the protests continued until troops moved in on June 4th. It still isn't known how many people were jailed, injured, or killed.
For those people who died, I really feel deep sorry for them because I was the leader. I led them go to the square.
Wang Dan was imprisoned twice for his actions and eventually released into exile to the U.S. He's published 17 books and is studying for his PhD at Harvard.
If I have a chance to go back to China, of course I still will involved in political activities or other activities to try to promote human rights and democracy.
Then and Now is brought to you by Chrysler. Inspiration comes standard.
Chrysler Town & Country with the exclusive Stow and Go seating and storage system. There when you need it, not there when you don't. The amazingly versatile 2006 Chrysler Town & Country starting at $21,735. Chrysler, inspiration comes standard.
They have passed this way before. The journeymen and women who make their meeting, who make their mark. We know them well and pay homage. With Wi-Fi, with 24-hour markets, with ergonomic 360-degree swiveling desk chairs, we've learned from their legion and remade ourselves in their image. These are the fruits of your labor. Enjoy.
I always got my Social Security checks in the mail. I depend on that money, so I was always worried whether it would be there. Then a friend of mine told me about Go Direct.
Go Direct lets you deposit your Social Security check directly into your account. Just call 1-888-514-6347. Nice people will answer, and you can sign up in just a few minutes.
I'll always have to think about money, but Go Direct takes at least one money concern away.
Call 1-888-514-6347 to sign up for direct deposit of your Social Security check.
An important message for anyone over 50 with diabetes or risks for heart disease. You may have poor leg circulation that could be a condition called peripheral artery disease, or PAD.
Dr. Torman, is PAD a serious condition?
Yes, because it increases your risk of heart attack or stroke up to 6 times. You see, poor circulation in the legs can be a sign of poor circulation throughout your body, including your heart and your brain.
There's information available to help you learn more.
Now, doctor, does everyone with PAD have symptoms?
Not necessarily. You may experience pain or heaviness in the legs when walking. If you're less active, you may not notice any symptoms.
Is there a test for PAD?
Yes, it's simple, and if you're diagnosed, treatments are available to reduce the risk of heart attack or stroke.
Learn how to reduce your risk. Call 1-800-560-8263 today for your free information about PAD, diagnosis, and treatment options.
Now, if you thought the romance between Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes was already creating a buzz, just wait till you hear what's happening with them now. With that story, our CNN Zane Vergy at the CNN Center in Atlanta. Zane?
John, you remember, right, when Tom Cruise jumped up and down on Oprah's couch, right, celebrating his romance with Katie Holmes?
I remember crying.
Yeah.
Yes,
yes, addicted to Oprah that you are. Well, there actually could be a lot more of that because he and Holmes reportedly are expecting a baby. Cruise's spokeswoman, Leanne DeVette, tells People magazine that the couple are very excited about having their first child, and their families are excited as well. But she wouldn't say how far along the pregnancy is or even if Holmes and Cruise know whether they'll have a boy or a girl. The 43-year-old actor and the 26-year-old actress have been dating since April. They famously got engaged at the top of the Eiffel Tower in June. Now, the spokeswoman, DeVette, John, says no wedding date's been set. So that's the big news today.
Big news indeed. Thank you, Zane. And stay with us for this one, Zane. What would you do if you came home to find a crocodile in your garage? For many in Florida, there's only one thing to do. Call a crocodile hunter. My next guest wrestled a cranky carnivore just today. Todd Hardwick is on the phone from Florida to tell us who won. I assume, Todd, because you're on the phone, you won. Talk about this remarkable event.
Well, obviously it's our goal to win these situations and bring the crocodile back to a safe environment, as well as give the homeowners back their garage.
And how do you do it? I assume this is something you practice, but we're watching the remarkable video of the lasso here. Walk us through it a bit.
Well, basically, we catch hundreds and hundreds of alligators down here in Florida, but a crocodile is a very different situation. We don't see them that often, and we certainly don't see them in somebody's garage. This may be, though, a trend as the crocodile continues to make a comeback. But as you can see, they are quite ferocious when cornered and out of their element being the water. So it is dangerous. This animal was over 9 feet in length and approximately 200 to 300 pounds, and it was potentially dangerous not only for the homeowners, but any family pets, cats, anything coming across this animal's path was a potential risk.
He looks a little hungry and a little feisty to me there. If I get home and I find a crocodile in my garage, do I find you in the yellow pages? And what do you charge? By the hour? By the tooth?
And basically, this one today was a courtesy to the police department. They received an emergency call referenced this crocodile, which actually at the time was thought to be a gator, and it was just a courtesy that we extended to them. They are not quite used to having to handcuff a crocodile, so I went out and took care of that for them, and the crocodile is currently out in the remote area of southern Florida doing what crocodiles do best.
What is it that crocodiles do best?
Find something for dinner.
All right, Todd Hardwick, thank you, and thank you for sharing your remarkable story on that beach, standing here for 3 hours in the Situation Room. I'll tell you that, hunting crocodiles. And remember, we're right here in the Situation Room every Wednesday afternoon from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm John King. Lou Dobbs Tonight starts right now, and Lou's in New York.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everybody. We begin tonight with an incredible incident that reveals the depth of our illegal immigration crisis, our failure to establish secure borders, and the breakdown in a critical part of our legal system. As if all of that were not enough, one of our most sensitive military bases turns out to be all but unprotected. Federal agents have arrested 3 illegal aliens at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and charged them with using false documents to gain employment. All 3 worked as foreign language teachers. Barbara Starr reports from the Pentagon.
Breach of security for the U.S. Army Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. By all accounts, it is the first such arrest at a special operations location. 2 people from Indonesia and a man from Senegal who taught foreign language to Army Special Operations forces were arrested Tuesday, charged with using false immigration papers. According to affidavits, the Indonesians were already facing deportation when they used false documents to gain employment. They were hired by a Florida firm that had a 5-year, $50 million contract to provide language instructors to special operations units. The Army says the instructors had no access to sensitive information and there is no indication of terrorist involvement. But immigration officials worry illegal workers at military sites could be blackmailed by terrorists for what they do know: identities of military personnel and layouts of sensitive facilities. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, said in a statement, unauthorized workers who use fraudulent documents to gain work at sensitive U.S. military installations pose a serious homeland security threat.
The problem is so widespread in terms of the inability of employers to really verify identity and authorization of an alien. And yeah, the exposure is there, the risk is there at military bases.
ICE routinely sweeps oil refineries, airports, and nuclear power plants, as well as military bases, to check for illegal aliens. On Tuesday, 7 illegal workers were arrested at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. In July, 6 illegal aliens were arrested at Homestead Air Reserve Base in Florida. This year, a total of 117 suspected illegal aliens have been arrested at military locations around the country. And Lou, the military says it is now reviewing that contract for foreign language instructors. Experts say it is very difficult to detect phony documents, but it is still the responsibility of the employer to determine that they are hiring legal workers, especially to work at sensitive military locations, Lou.
It may be difficult, but it is absolutely necessary and critical to national security. How can anyone continue to rationalize what has become a trend in breaching our security at these bases?
It is a matter of concern, we are told, both by immigration officials and also the military. You know, there's a difference in this case we're talking about today. Most of the arrests have been workers at military bases who perhaps work construction, road paving, those types of projects. But this one is different. These are people who did get into a special operations training school, and that is certainly a matter of concern to immigration officials, Lou.
Barbara, thank you very much. Barbara Starr from the Pentagon. In Parris Island, a court-martial underway today of a Marine recruiter accused of helping illegal aliens become U.S. Marines. 35-year-old gunnery sergeant Hubert Lucas faces court-martial for helping 24 illegal aliens obtain false identification so that they could qualify to join the service. Investigators say Lucas provided illegal aliens with stolen Social Security numbers and counterfeit green cards. They say he allegedly carried out his scheme for 4 years without being caught. Later in this broadcast, we'll have a special report on our nation's green card giveaway. Christine Romans will report on how our nation's overwhelmed immigration system is handing out citizenship to those who could well be a danger to our national security. At the Supreme Court today, an emotional hearing on a patient's right to die. The justices considered a law in the state of Oregon that allows doctors to prescribe lethal doses of medicine to terminally ill patients who want to end their own lives. Kathleen Koch reports.
Outside the Supreme Court Wednesday, advocates of Oregon's assisted suicide law, like cancer patient Charlene Andrews, argued it is a comfort and a choice the terminally ill deserve.
It's all part of the spiritual journey of being able to die with compassion and with dignity.
But opponents believe assisted suicide is wrong and devalues those with disabilities.
It promotes the idea that people that need help would be better off dead. And we don't believe in that. We believe that our lives are just as valuable as everyone else's.
Inside, though, justices wrestled with whether the 1970 Controlled Substances Act gives the federal government the right to stop doctors from giving terminally ill patients a lethal dose of medication. Retiring Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, the critical swing vote, asked whether an attorney general who opposes capital punishment could use the law to prohibit lethal injections. Oregon's assistant attorney general argued that the federal government can regulate drugs, but not how physicians administer them. Chief Justice John Roberts seemed skeptical, asking, quote, if one state says doctors can prescribe morphine to make people feel good or steroids for bodybuilders, doesn't that undermine the uniformity of federal law and make it harder to enforce elsewhere? Solicitor General Paul Clement argued that assisted suicide lacks legitimate medical purpose and so is an improper use of medication and thus a violation of federal drug laws. This divisive case may be fated to end in a tie. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor is retiring and will likely be off the court before it's decided. So Harriet Miers, the president's nominee, would then be the tiebreaker. However, because she was White House counsel when this case was appealed to the Supreme Court, she may have to recuse herself. Lou?
If indeed she is confirmed, we should have had that hypothetical. Kathleen Koch, thank you very much. Later here in the broadcast, I'll be joined by the Oregon woman who is fighting terminal cancer, who wants the right to choose how and when she will die if her treatments prove ultimately unsuccessful. The Oregon case is the subject of our poll tonight. The question, do you believe terminally ill patients should have the right to determine when they end their own lives? Yes or no? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results later here in the broadcast. As the Supreme Court began hearing its high-profile case with John Roberts as its Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice nominee Harriet Miers was meeting with senators whose support she obviously needs to win confirmation. Miers' third day on Capitol Hill comes as conservatives remain unconvinced about her Supreme Court credentials. Ed Henry reports from Capitol Hill. Ed?
Lou, in fact, Harriet Miers woke up this morning to a blistering column by conservative George Will suggesting that Republican senators should stand up and vote her down. She then came up to Capitol Hill, as you mentioned, and got a pretty lukewarm reception. Not surprisingly, she did get the endorsement of fellow Texan Senator John Cornyn. He welcomed her warmly at a courtesy call. But then there was a lot of negative reaction from some other senior Republicans. Trent Lott saying that sometimes presidents make mistakes. He says that his initial reaction when he heard it was Harriet Miers was, uh-oh. He said he voted for David Souter in the first Bush administration and has regretted it ever since. He's worried the same situation may play out, so he's undecided at this moment. Another influential Republican, Senator John Thune, basically said that he thinks the anxiety in the conservative community right now is palpable. He says the jury is still out because conservatives have been reassured before and then they got burned, such as in the Souter case. Conservatives also may not be happy about what transpired in Harriet Miers' meeting today with Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy. He asked her about the fact that influential conservative activist James Dobson has basically said he's been assured that she is pro-life. Here's the reaction. The reaction basically from that meeting was that Senator Leahy asked her, and he later told reporters that she insisted she has not privately assured anyone about her positions on abortion or anything else, and that she is going to be independent. Now, White House advisor Ed Gillespie was also on the Hill today. He told reporters that, in fact, he felt the same kind of pressure from conservatives earlier this summer when Chief Justice John Roberts was first appointed by President Bush. He said conservatives obviously were complaining that Roberts was a blank slate. They eventually were reassured to the point that Roberts got 78 votes. The White House not predicting that many votes, but they're saying they feel after all the hand-wringing, in the end, Harriet Miers is going to be confirmed rather easily, Lou.
Well, Ed Gillespie's reference to Judge Roberts may be the only comparison that I've heard anyone make between Harriet Miers, certainly, and now Chief Justice Roberts. That's right. Remarkable.
Well, in fact, a senior Republican aide in the Senate here told me that the problem, as you're indicating there, is that John Roberts is an extremely tough act to follow, and that basically anybody who would have been put up would have had a hard time. But specifically because of Harriet Miers' lack of experience, it could be particularly difficult. And in fact, this senior Republican aide told me that despite some of the rosy scenarios by the White House, they have a lot more work to do up here to convince Republican senators to support Harriet Miers, Lou.
To convince Republican senators, also the Democrats had already vowed weeks ago, before, in fact, Chief Justice Roberts was confirmed, that they indeed will engage strongly and vociferously against the president's nominee to replace Sandra Day O'Connor on the High Court. Ed Henry, thank you very much. Well, those comparisons between Harriet Miers and Chief Justice Roberts, there is one comparison that's easy to make. When the president appointed Harriet Miers to the Supreme Court earlier this week, her legal experience stood in stark contrast, of course, to that of Chief Justice Roberts. Here's how President Bush described both candidates' strikingly different backgrounds while announcing their Supreme Court nominations.
In his extraordinary career, Judge Roberts has argued 39 cases before the nation's highest court. Over the course of a distinguished legal career, Harriet has earned the respect and admiration of her fellow attorneys, both those who worked with him and those who have faced him in the courtroom speak with admiration of his striking ability as a lawyer and his natural gifts as a leader. She has a record of achievement in the law, as well as experience as an elected member of the Dallas City Council. John Roberts has built a record of excellence and achievement and a reputation for goodwill and decency toward others. In recognition of her achievements paving the way for women lawyers, Harriet's colleagues in Texas have honored her with numerous awards. Most recently, the Sandra Day O'Connor Award for Professional Excellence.
That comparison in the president's own words. Later here, we'll be exploring how Harriet Miers' deep religious faith and convictions could give some insight into just how she would judge on the Supreme Court. Also ahead here, Tropical Storm Tammy has struck Florida with very little warning. We'll tell you where that storm is headed and why some folks in New Orleans are getting a first look, but not a long one, at the place they once called home.
Lou Dobbs Tonight is brought to you by Kerr McGee, a global energy company. Explore more.
I'm always here, working. A low profile on the high plateau, vanishing in the shadows of the buttes. Bred to be nature's neighbor, reaching miles deep for energy America needs. A natural gas well, meeting the demand in harmony with the land. With still more to explore.
Hey, isn't Jacobson choking?
I'd definitely say Jacobson's choking.
I know exactly what to do. I've seen it in the movies. It's called the Heimlich maneuver. You make a ball, stand behind the guy, and pull hard. The action on the solar plexus.
That's right, the solar plexus.
Expels the food. Just like I told you.
Less talk.
Just like in the movies.
Make it happen. The Royal Bank of Scotland Group.
Exclusively from Sharper Image, the Ionic Breeze Silent Air Purifier with Ozone Guard. It not only captures pollen, dust, and dander, it can actually convert smog and ozone into oxygen with no fans, no filters, silently. The Ionic Breeze charges incoming air and contaminants attached to the collection grid. Then the air passes through the new Ozone Guard grill with Premier Catalyst coating that instantly converts a significant portion of smog and ozone into pure oxygen. America's most trusted brand of air purifier, the Ionic Breeze is the only air purifier that's earned seals from both the British Allergy Foundation and the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America because it's been proven to reduce airborne allergens. Order now and get a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze to help keep your bathroom fresh and clean. A free 5-year warranty, and you'll even get free shipping.
Call 1-800-497-5755. That's 1-800-497-5755.
Don't wait for the most exciting news video. Get it now from CNN.com. The most dramatic stories, the video everyone will be talking about, all free. Go to CNN.com and click on Watch. Free video on CNN.com. Get the full picture.
Heavy rains from Tropical Storm Tammy are already hitting northeastern Florida, Georgia, and parts of South Carolina tonight. The storm Tammy, which formed very quickly in the Atlantic, is already lashing the Florida coastline, and the storm center is expected to move ashore sometime tonight or early tomorrow with winds of about 45 miles an hour. This storm could dump as much as 10 inches of rain in some parts as it moves inland. Tropical storm warnings are up tonight from Flagler Beach, Florida to South Carolina's South Santee River. Tammy is the 19th named storm of this Atlantic hurricane season. In New Orleans today, health officials declared 2 of that city's main hospitals unsalvageable after Hurricane Katrina. Charity and university hospitals will have to be rebuilt at an estimated cost of almost $500 million. The buildings are polluted with toxic air and mold. The hospitals have been empty since their patients and staff were evacuated. Charity Hospital is the main trauma center for southeastern Louisiana. Meanwhile, to the east of New Orleans, St. Bernard Parish says it doesn't have enough money to pay for law enforcement. The sheriff says the parish won't be able to make its payroll for 182 employees. Today was payday. Also in New Orleans, people whose neighborhoods were destroyed by the hurricane were allowed to take their first look at what's left of their homes. It was a day of discovery and often despair for residents who now know what was saved and what was lost. Lisa Sylvester reports.
Cheryl Nouse and her daughter have to break a window to get into their home. The front door is warped.
Oh my God, oh my God. Oh, everything, nothing is where it ever was. Oh Lord.
When Katrina hit, Cheryl moved out and mold moved in. Now it's a scavenger hunt for what can be saved.
This looks okay. This is my special jewelry. There's the ring my mom gave me. My dad got in Germany in the war. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you for small favors.
She and other Lakeview area residents were allowed to see their homes for the first time. Councilman Jay Batt handed out water to families. Even his home was not spared.
It looked like a tornado hit it. It looks like a tidal wave hit it. And it looks like someone went to, got some horse dung and slung it around in the room. It is disgusting.
As residents sift through their belongings, they're also sorting through insurance matters. Many are finding even with flood insurance, their losses may not be covered. Cheryl Nouse's home was valued at $175,000.
When I bought my house, it wasn't worth that much, and I just never upped the insurance to that high.
And flood insurance is capped at $250,000 for the house structure. So many of the people who live in this middle-class neighborhood could find themselves financially upside down, meaning their mortgage payment is actually higher than what the insurance company is willing to give them. Lou?
The misery obviously palpable for so many people in New Orleans. Lisa, give us a sense of the breadth of the number of homes, the reach of this problem, the number of homes that appear to have been all but destroyed.
Well, in this area, the Lakeview area, there are 35,000 people. And when I spoke to Councilman Jay Batt, who he had in his piece, altogether he said there are about 100,000 residents in this area. So, I mean, as you put the numbers together, it is literally just house after house after house. These homes are for all intents and purposes, they are demolished. If you look inside, they're just covered from the floor to the ceiling, just covered in mold. So it's going to be a good while before these folks come back and will be able to move back into their house. But they're very resilient, and they say they will be back.
Lisa Sylvester, thank you. The U.S. Mint today unveiled the new nickel. Beginning next year, the new nickel will feature an image of President Thomas Jefferson facing forward. Previously, all presidential images were in profile. Now, you may notice a resemblance to someone we all know. I asked our deep research department to take a closer look and to examine this face for familiarity. Add just a hat, and you might get a hint of who it appears to be. Some on our staff seem to think Jefferson's image on this new nickel looks a lot like none other than Don Imus. There is a similarity, I think. The U.S. Mint assures us it is Jefferson and that Don Imus did not model that image at all, but we'll find out more as our deep research staff continues to investigate. Coming up, a green card controversy, another one, why it's becoming much easier for terrorists to get their hands on one, and the threat that poses to our national security. And religion and the bench, what Harriet Mier's faith could tell us about her judicial philosophy. Should we be asking at all? We'll have that special report next.
CNN Primetime tonight at 7. The avian flu, a potential outbreak of epic proportions. Is the U.S. prepared? How will our government respond? Don't miss this special report, The Avian Flu, tonight 7 Eastern, only on CNN.
Schwab Street Smart Pro. We're talking a stock screener with 140 criteria to help hone your search, a sector tool that shows which industries are moving, and conditional alerts that trigger automatically, all in one advanced trading platform. All for just $9.95 a trade. Schwab Street Smart Pro. Test drive it now at schwab.com/pro.
Soto & Partners.
McPhee & Associates. King Brokers.
Hello.
Hi.
Now with free incoming plans from Sprint Business, it's easier to say yes when customers call. And with our buy one, get one free deal, you and your company can say yes. Sprint Business gives you free incoming calls from all phones, all networks, all the time. So you can make just about any place a workplace. Call 877-63-SPRINT or visit a Sprint or Nextel store today. Sprint Business. Yes, you can.
Don't you want to know what's going on out there? CNN Security Watch, the most reliable news about your family's safety and security, only on CNN.
Find exactly the new car you're looking for. Search actual inventories across the U.S. or within a few miles online at vx.com. Just click Auto on Comcast.net.
Think you found the best way to keep track of what's on this month? Think again. There's an easier way to follow what's on TV with Channel Guide magazine. Never miss your favorites with Channel Guide's easy-to-read grids, including local programs. Plus, you'll find every movie on cable from A to Z and get the scoop on the best shows, stars, and more. So make a note to ask your cable company for Channel Guide. It may be the last note you'll ever make.
prepare for the future. Flash forward, CNN Sunday night, 8 Eastern.
There are new concerns tonight that mountains of immigration applications are being rubber stamped and national security being compromised. 4 years after the 9/11 attacks, experts say a terrorist could again get a visa approved in as little as 14 minutes. Christine Romans has the report.
6 months after 9/11, an immigration adjudicator approved visa changes for hijackers Mohammed Atta and Marwan al-Shehi. A Government Accountability Office investigation at the time found pressure to adjudicate cases quickly, as did a review by the Justice Department. Today, the men and women who process these applications are still being pushed to cut corners and rubber stamp visas and green cards, according to the union representing them.
We're not 100% certain that we're identifying the gang members, not 100% certain that we're identifying the drug smugglers, and not 100% certain that we're identifying the terrorists.
A change of status application like the one granted for the 9/11 terrorists can be approved in just 14 minutes, sometimes less. A green card application can run 40 pages to hundreds long. A half-an-hour review is considered outstanding. Last week, a Citizenship and Immigration Service investigator warned Congress the agency is riddled with corruption and under intense pressure to clear up the immigration backlog. And CIS is clearing it up. Earlier this year, it told Congress it whittled down the paperwork backlog from 3.8 million to 1.5 million. But the agency insists, even as it reduces the pile of immigration paperwork, national security is paramount. CIS says all applicants are thoroughly reviewed, and it conducts 35 million background checks a year. That's about 135,000 a day. A spokeswoman for the agency said there has been progress since 9/11 and downplayed criticism of the agency as union grandstanding.
But a former immigration agent likens the green card and visa process to a conveyor belt, where government workers are graded on how quickly they push immigrants through the system and push the paper. Lou?
135,000 background checks a day?
It's a lot of automation, but they say 35 million background checks a year, and every person who gets a visa in this country, they say they have a thorough review.
Christine Romans, thank you. In Southern California tonight, firefighters are battling a fierce wildfire that began in Mexico, then jumped the border into the United States near San Diego. This fire has already scorched 1,000 acres in Mexico, another 500 acres in Southern California. Officials say the blaze probably started in a building in Mexico and then spread to dry brush. No word on when anyone expects to contain this fire. Coming up next, Harriet Miers. Her judicial views are in question, but not her faith. And that has, in the minds of many, raised new questions. A special report. And scary parallels between the killer flu epidemic of 1918 and the avian flu of today. Stay with us.
I turned to my son Jack and I said, "How far do you think a 3 would go here?" And he said, "Pop," he says, "I think that'll go a long way." And so I took dead aim at it and hit it right at the flag. The ball hit and bounced down about, 12 feet to the left of the hole.
Like Jack Nicklaus, the Royal Bank of Scotland Group know it's never good enough just to talk a good game. You have to play a good game. Make it happen.
The materials, the medicines, things that make modern life modern come from one place, chemistry. Learn more at AmericanChemistry.com.
Now on DVD, Into the West.
We'll keep coming.
One family's journey into the heart of the American dream. Into the West. Add the 4-disc special edition to your DVD collection today.
CNN Tonight, Atlanta hostage hero Ashley Smith and purpose-driven life author Rick Warren. Did God pick her to make the accused courthouse killer surrender? Ashley Smith and Rick Warren take your calls. Larry King Live, CNN Tonight, 9 Eastern.
Know a kid today? They demand lots of electricity and clean air.
Don't tell them you have to sacrifice the environment for technology. Today, nuclear energy provides 1/5 of America's electricity. Tomorrow, it could supply even more. And nuclear power plants don't burn anything, so they don't pollute the air. We need reliable electricity for the 21st century, but we also need clean air. With nuclear energy, we can have both. Nuclear, the clean air energy.
Tonight, questions being raised over the judicial qualifications of Supreme Court nominee Harriet Miers. One thing not in question, Harriet Miers' deep religious beliefs. She's been a born-again Christian since the late 70s. Her strong religious faith could give some insight into how she might rule from the bench in the view of many. Our faith and religion correspondent, Delia Gallagher, joins me now. Miers' faith getting a lot of attention, and people are looking to that religious conviction to give them a clue as to what she'll do on the bench.
Well, yes, in part because she doesn't have a judicial record to go on. So one tries to look at some other facets about her to try to understand who this person is. I mean, of course, that's not to say that we would understand from that how she might vote on certain issues, but certainly I think the White House trying to get out that she is a person of evangelical convictions and that she is a person who perhaps might be in that conservative mindset, and they want to get that message out for sure.
What have you learned about what role her faith has played, what the implications are, if any?
Well, I've talked to many of the people down at Valley View Christian Church, which is in Dallas. It's been her church for the past 30 years. And all of them, of course, have wonderful things to say about her and her faith. You know, she was a convert. She had this religious experience. And once you enter into that, she said that, I talked to Judge Hecht, for example, who is a good friend of hers and was responsible for bringing her in there. And he says she is pro-life. And that, again, not to extrapolate from that how she might vote, but that she is pro-family and pro-life. She's been very involved teaching Sunday school at the church, and everybody has sort of emphasized that she has this very strong religious faith.
For many of us, when you describe her in those terms, and in terms of her faith, we think a wonderful, decent, upstanding person. There are those who are so pro-abortion that they're going to say threat, and actually be repulsed by the idea that the president has moved someone who is so pro-life that it might move into the bench and her opinions.
Yes, and I mean, I think it's interesting that even Judge Hecht said, you know, what we are nominating here is a judge, not a priest. And he said the question really is about her judicial qualifications and how she decides cases, not about her faith necessarily.
And I have to tell you, I'm personally uncomfortable with the idea of examining one's faith to make some sort of extrapolation about how they conduct any other part of their life. It seems to me that's a very private matter. It should not be a public matter. And I frankly was thinking, you know, Judge Roberts is Catholic. No moment was made of that. If she were Jewish, what would we divine from that? It seems to be not an ecumenical approach. And I think the idea that she's evangelical, born-again Christian, has set off certain impulses for extrapolation that would not otherwise be there.
Well, it's a very good point, Lou, and I think you know, it's something that a lot of people probably share, but the problem is in the absence of this judicial record, one wants to know who this person is, and that is legitimate, to ask who she is and what she believes. It's not, as you point out, probably wise to suggest that because she believes something, she will necessarily vote one way or the other.
And puts, again, the premium on nominating justices to the Supreme Court who are qualified clearly with their experience legally and with the, as President Bush put it, with a keen mind. Thank you very much, Delia Gallagher. Another issue of great moral debate in this country, the focus of emotional arguments today before the Supreme Court. The justices are considering the Bush administration's challenge to the nation's only right to die law, that in Oregon. My next guest says she would be appalled if the Supreme Court were to overturn that law. Charlene Andrews of Salem, Oregon, is terminally ill with cancer. She says if her treatments are ultimately unsuccessful, she wants the right to choose how and when she dies, as allowed by Oregon's law. Charlene Andrews was at the Supreme Court today and watched those arguments and joins us now from Washington. Charlene, good to have you here.
Thank you.
You have been fighting cancer for years. Obviously, it's in remission, and yet you are absolutely committed to the Oregon law, twice approved by the citizens of Oregon, we should point out.
Right. I was diagnosed in December 2000 with stage 4 breast cancer. I will be celebrating my 5 years in December at Christmas. I'm really not in remission. We are controlling the cancer and giving me as much quality of life as possible.
You've been actually taking chemotherapy for what, three and a half years?
Well, I've been on a continuous chemo for 3.5 years.
And with that good fight, you're doing extraordinarily well. And I think that the great hope is, with all of the advances in medicine and technology, the commitment of your doctors, you still are preparing for the ultimate lack of success in those treatments.
With cancer, we know that our treatment options just go on so long. We know when there is an end to our treatment options. There is a time when we know that there's nothing else out there for us.
Charlene, you're a resident, a citizen of the only state in the Union that has a right to die law, a death with dignity law. This is a most difficult issue for families, obviously for any individual whose prognosis is terminal. To watch this argument before the Supreme Court, which could, in fact, end the Oregon right to die law. How did you feel today as you listened to those arguments and watched the proceedings?
I was hopeful from the questions that were asked. I'm hopeful that they would take the human needs of people with cancer into consideration and give us that choice. The choice is very important to me. It's very important to have the compassion with dying, which this law does afford us.
Charlene, you yourself, are you a religious person?
I don't consider myself religious. I do consider myself very spiritual, and this is all part of my spiritual journey. I feel as though I respect the rights, I respect the religious beliefs, but I also expect them to respect mine.
Your friends, your family, they've come to terms with your decision?
Yes, I have a lot of support through all my friends.
Well, Charlene Andrews, this case now before the Supreme Court will obviously affect the choice of all of the citizens of Oregon who have to make that very, very difficult choice. We thank you for being here to share your thoughts, and we wish you all of the very best.
Well, thank you, and it's a very important issue for us.
Absolutely, for all of us. Thank you very much, Charlene
Thank
Andrews.
you.
A reminder now to vote in our poll. The question is, do you believe terminally ill patients should have the right to determine when they end their own lives? Yes or no? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results coming up later here. Joining me now for the analysis on this right to die case and its implications to our society, our senior legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, good to have you here. You listened to Charlene Andrews, who is more than an interested observer, obviously. The state of Oregon, a Death with Dignity Act. The issues are extraordinary, reaching across a religious spectrum, the social spectrum of this country. Our physicians who are committed to saving life, aiding a patient who makes a decision. How did those arguments appear to you today?
Well, it's rare you have an issue where so many Americans are confronted with this exact situation, whether themselves, their family members. It's a very familiar story. The actual legal issue, though, before the court is a fairly narrow one, which is who decides whether this is permissible? Can Oregon by itself say that doctors may prescribe controlled substances in a way that could kill patients intentionally? Or does the federal government, which prohibits that practice, trump the state's right?
To just add some clarity here, in Oregon, the case is that a physician may prescribe lethal doses which the patient may choose to take himself or herself. It's a physician assisted, not a physician. It's not euthanasia.
Not at all. It is a joint decision between the patient and the doctor. But Chief Justice Roberts is emerging as an active participant in his own court very quickly, and he was very skeptical of the Oregon law. He was saying, the whole idea of federal drug laws is to have uniform standards throughout the country. How can we let one state do this when other states don't?
And the Chief Justice was also skeptical, was he not, of the capacity of the federal government to reach over, he asking, in point of fact, for analogs to this case in precedent.
Indeed, and David Souter was actually very sympathetic to the Oregon law, saying this has nothing to do with illegal drugs. This is not about heroin or cocaine. This is individual transactions between doctors and patients, and why shouldn't states be allowed to regulate that on their own, independent of the federal government?
Was it your sense, as you watched these arguments, that there was a broad sense of humanity? We know that Justice Roberts is also deeply religious. The personal convictions and the emotions, the humanity involved here, was it evident on the part of the justices?
Absolutely. Remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has had cancer. Right. John Paul Stevens has had cancer. Stephen Breyer's wife is a psychologist who counsels cancer patients for a living. So this is something that is not abstract to them. And I think they will deal with this with considerable sensitivity, though I would guess that the Oregon law will probably fall compared to the federal rights law. Federal law.
We shall see, as they say. Jeffrey Toobin, thanks for the analysis. Okay. Good to have your insight. New developments tonight in the investigation of the Lake George boating accident in which 20 people were killed this weekend. Authorities today ran tests on a similar vessel to the Ethan Allen, loading it with heavy barrels of water. The test showing the vessel was not stable enough to hold the approximate weight of the 48 people who were aboard the Ethan Allen at the time it capsized Sunday. The Coast Guard says that test shows the weight limits on the boat could be outdated. As governments around the world prepare for the possibility of a bird flu pandemic, alarming studies are raising new fears about just how deadly a bird flu outbreak could be. Scientists tonight say the flu virus that killed tens of millions of people around the world in 1918 and 1919 was probably a flu strain that originated in birds. They say it has important similarities with today's avian flu and share much the same genetic mutation. Scientists writing in the magazine Nature say their studies point out the dangers that this current strain of bird flu poses to humanity worldwide. Meanwhile, Indonesia today reported its 7th bird flu death. More than 65 people have now died from the bird flu strain around the world. A mysterious virus at a Toronto nursing home today claimed 6 more lives, bringing the death total to 16. Another 88 residents, employees, and visitors in the home are sick with the respiratory illness. Health officials have ruled out SARS, which killed 44 people in Toronto 2 years ago. Officials have also ruled out flu and Legionnaire's disease. The nursing home in question shares building space with a child care facility, which remarkably remains open despite the outbreak. Health officials are monitoring the children there who have contracted respiratory illnesses. Still ahead here tonight, a leading economist and social critic declares globalism dead. John Ralston Saul is our guest, and then giving local law enforcement the power to capture illegal aliens. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson has proposed legislation to do just that. She's our guest as well. Stay with us.
It's the time of the season when love runs high in this time.
Moving your 401ks to Fidelity is groovy. Our retirement specialists make it so easy, they'll even do most of the paperwork. You dig? Call 1-800-FIDELITY. Smart move.
Partners. McPhee & Associates. King Brokers. Hello. Hi.
Now with free incoming plans from Sprint Business, it's easier to say yes when customers call. And with our buy one, get one free deal, you and your company can say yes. Sprint Business gives you free incoming calls from all phones, all networks, all the time. So you can make just about any place a workplace. Call 888-863-9835 or visit a Sprint or Nextel store today. Sprint Business. Yes, you can.
Does retirement have to wait until my 70s? Is a great college for our kids?
Out of the question?
Is the American dream
Out of our reach?
Not if we can help it. We're the National Endowment for Financial Education, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping people just like you get smart about their money. Log on to smartaboutmoney.org today and start taking control of your financial life.
It's time for the lending industry to change. That's why eLoan has consultants who don't make money based on the rate of the loan and has no lender fees. Those are some of the revolutionary ways we're changing the lending industry. eLoan. Radically simple.
Shocking news tonight from the Central Intelligence Agency. CIA Director Porter Goss has announced no action will be taken against any employee who was singled out in the 9/11 investigation for intelligence failures that led to the biggest terrorist attacks against us on American soil. In a statement, Goss said singling out those individuals would send the wrong message to our junior officers about taking risks, whether it be an operation in the field or being assigned to a hot topic at headquarters. One member of the 9/11 Commission says the recommendation should not have been dismissed.
The 9/11 Commission found that there were plenty of mistakes from numerous government agencies, and the CIA or any agency in government shouldn't get a free pass on accountability and making sure we correct the mistakes of the past.
John Negroponte, the Director of National Intelligence who oversees Porter Goss and his agency, said he fully supports the CIA Director's decision. My next guest today introduced legislation that would give state and local officials expanded powers to arrest, detain, and prosecute illegal aliens. In the absence of the federal government's interest in doing so, this bill would also create a civilian volunteer border marshal program. Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson is the author of the bill, joining us tonight from Capitol Hill. Senator, good to have you here. How would your bill strengthen the authority of state, local officials when dealing with an illegal alien crisis that's overwhelmed the federal government?
It would allow state and local officials to allow their people, the law enforcement officers on the street, to apprehend an illegal alien. Today, a local official cannot do that. And I don't think we'll ever have enough law enforcement officials that are federal, Lou, to really handle the overwhelming situation that we have. These people need help, and if the states want to do it, I think we ought to allow them to do it.
If they want to do it, New Mexico and Arizona, have declared a state of emergency, and the federal government is responding. And your bill is certainly a positive step forward. But the fact is, neither it nor any proposal before the United States Senate or the United States Congress right now calls for the establishment of absolute border security, and for the absolute end to this crisis.
Well, we are working on having more Border Patrol agents, more detention beds, so that we can get people who are other than Mexicans deported, which we cannot do now because we don't have the beds to keep them. We are working on many fronts, but I think it's time to take bold action. And I think that if local law enforcement officials want to be able to apprehend illegal aliens and hold them until the federal officials can prosecute them and deport them, they ought to be able to do that. It wouldn't allow them to define what an illegal alien is. It would make it federal law.
We pretty well understand that, I believe.
Well, that's exactly right, but federal law would prevail, but I think we could get a lot more manpower out there, especially in states, Lou, that aren't on the border. Right. We don't have the capability in Kansas and Missouri to really deal with the issue that is becoming a looming crisis all over our country, and I think this will add one more layer of law enforcement that could be helpful.
Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, we wish you well as your legislation. We thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Still ahead, I'll be talking with one of the world's most respected economists and philosophers, John Ralston Saul. He says, and he can back it up, globalism is dead. Stay with us.
CNN Tomorrow, American Morning, Soledad O'Brien and Miles O'Brien, where real news makes the difference. American Morning, CNN Tomorrow, 70.
Search through hundreds of thousands of used cars across the U.S. or within a few miles. Online at bx.com. Just click Auto on Comcast.net.
Shopping for a new home? Did you know that in the time it takes you to drive to just one house, you could visit 100 without leaving your home? Coldwell Banker Barbara Sue Seal Properties introduces a better way to shop. Find your new home on TV or online, anytime. Hundreds and hundreds of dream homes are now just a click away. On Channel 15 or at cbseal.com. Coldwell Banker Barbara Sue Seal Properties. Discover the joy of home shopping from home.
Hey there. Hi. I haven't seen you before.
Yeah, I just moved here. I'm new. Wanna hang out or something? 'Cause I have a feeling we're gonna be best friends.
Things can get pretty ugly when you're bored. In an after-school program, you can find something way better to do.
Comcast, focused on community.
Comcast is
Originals.
Tune into HBO to catch Bob Costas with the latest sports issues and interviews on Costas Now. And don't miss the extraordinary drama of the new epic original series, Rome.
Whatever you're into.
It's on Comcast.
Serving the greater Portland area, we're Comcast.
Aaron Brown, Anderson Cooper. Newsnight, CNN Tonight, 10 Eastern.
My special guest tonight is one of the world's most eminent philosophers and economists and social thinkers. John Ralston Saul challenges conventional orthodoxy by arguing that globalization has run its course and that nationalism is reasserting itself all over the world. John Ralston Saul is the author of the new book, The Collapse of Globalism and the Reinvention of the World. It is great to have you here.
Wonderful to be back.
If globalism is dead, I thought we were told that all borders were gone and that this is just one big happy world. That hasn't worked out.
Military spending's just gone over $1 trillion. It's only 6% below the height of Cold War military spending. Arms sales are up about 20-30% a year. Europe is stalled. Self-interest is coming back everywhere inside Europe. You've got a whole bunch of new countries in there from Central Europe who are really interested in strengthening the nation state. Fear of immigration in Europe, fear of immigration in a number of places, return of racism. And interestingly enough, the return of a whole bunch of things that were supposed to disappear. I mean, you know, globalism and the accompanying economics were supposed to bring debt-free governments.
No, that certainly worked out, didn't it?
No, you know, the United States now has the biggest debt in the history of the world, I think, of any government, and it's happening all over the place. European governments are slipping into debt.
That debt mounting for the United States. One of the statistics that I find most incredible, I don't know what you think, but it strikes me, when we look at the current account deficit, which is sort of boring to people, they don't pay much attention to it, but now it's about a little over 6% of our GDP in this country. The United States now has 70% of the total current account deficits of the world.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Well, when things start going wrong, the most powerful country in the world, you know, once the British Empire, etc., when it's going well, it really works for the most powerful country in the world. When it goes wrong, it goes on your back. I mean, you become the reserve of good and everything that's wrong. And I guess it's one of the signs of the imbalance out there. And of the fact that people really didn't think their way through what they meant when they launched a rather simplistic theory of international economics and started saying, look, from now on, economics are going to lead the way. We're going to look at everything through the prism of economics. And they didn't think what the real implications of that were.
Well, I can't tell you how many people told me 10, 15 years ago, certainly, that, you know, the borders, the nation state is dead, borders are immaterial, technology will overwhelm all of the base impulses of mankind, and to speak of the national interest is really so declass and primitive. We've
Absolutely.
Evolved to a new level. absurdity.
Well, nation state's probably stronger today now than it's been since about 1945. And I mean, there can be positives to this. It's not. There can be great negatives and great positives, and
This is the want of human history.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in an interim period. I think a great truth comes to an end. The elites don't notice, which is why they're so disturbed by this sort of conversation, because they've made their careers on the basis that it's inevitable for at least as long as they're in power or in their jobs.
They're shuddering at the United Nations as you speak.
Yeah. And then suddenly you slip into this interim period like a vacuum, where there are all these contradictory forces going on, banging up against each other. And that's our opportunity. That's the moment of choice when citizens, nation states, can actually slightly direct how we come out of the vacuum. And that's what's so interesting about this moment. We don't have to be the victims of inevitability for the next 25 years.
Are you suggesting, my
choice?
Heart be still, that there is such a thing as seizing one's destiny and making choices?
To some reasonable extent, yes. I think it's entirely possible.
Well, Washington now is shuddering.
Well, I think that we have to ask the really big questions. I mean, most of the theories that have been dominant for the last 25 years are 19th century theories.
Right.
They were designed for societies living in scarcity. We've been in surplus, even though there are poor people. We've been in surplus for 50 years, and we've been using economic theories based on scarcity. This is one of the reasons why it doesn't really work. We went into this system that was supposed to produce more competition. Today we have oligopolies and monopolies at the international level. In fact, I believe, and this is maybe the most difficult thing for some of those people to accept, that we're actually slipping towards a pre-capitalist period, back into something that bored us to death at school called mercantilism, which is when you had companies like the British East India Company and the Hudson's Bay Company that controlled international markets from, the silkworm through to the lady in a ball gown, and there was no real competition, and that is the opposite of capitalism.
What the British called in those days a level playing field, I believe.
That's right.
And what mercantilism, which the Chinese practice, and while the United States and other countries who have a mantra about free trade, what they haven't noticed is the Chinese are great mercantilists and have a national agenda, interest, initiative, and a plan. Give us a sense of what fills the vacuum, in your view.
Well, I think there are a couple of possibilities. On the negative side, you have a continuing rise of negative nationalism, which we're seeing.
Right.
Racism, nation states closing in on themselves. There's a rise in fear. We see this everywhere, right? And that fear, if it reaches a certain point, can overtake anything.
Give us the positive.
The positive is, frankly, that even though they're not in politics, there are more young people involved in public affairs today than ever before in history. Now they're in NGOs, they're in parallel movements. But if you can get a reasonable percentage of them to come over into elective politics and humiliate themselves on a daily basis, which is what happens, then you really have a wave of possibilities of new ideas. But they've got to come into the mainstream.
To come into the mainstream, there are liberals out there who are thrilled to hear what you're saying. There are conservatives recoiling.
Well, some conservatives might like it too.
But I was going to say, and at the same time, there are those who are saying, well, wait a minute, the national interest is probably a good thing to reassert. It doesn't mean one's necessarily unsophisticated to recognize there is such a thing as a national interest, that sometimes a system of government makes possible an economy and a standard of living.
Well, in the end, it was very naive and unsophisticated to believe that where you come from doesn't matter.
Right.
And that how could you turn to the most educated people in the history of the world and say you don't have any power? Abstract markets are going to determine where you're going.
John Ralston, it is always good to have you here. I could talk with you throughout the evening. We appreciate it.
Great to see you.
I've got a producer who thinks I just done that. Thank you very much. Still ahead, the results of tonight's poll, a preview of what's ahead tomorrow. Stay with us.
Pollen, dust, dander, and now smog and ozone too. Exclusively from Sharper Image, the Ionic Breeze Silent Air Purifier with Ozone Guard that can actually convert smog and ozone into oxygen. Cleaning and circulating your air with no fans, no filters, silently. America's most trusted brand of air purifier introduces revolutionary new technology. Sharper Image, working with the Engelhard Corporation, inventors of the modern catalytic converter, introduces Ozone Guard with Premier Catalyst, recognized by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as a newer way to reduce air pollution. In fact, the more polluted the incoming air, the more oxygen it helps generate. The ionic breeze charges incoming air and contaminants attached to the collection grid. Then the air passes through an additional cleaning stage in the new Ozone Guard grill with Premier Catalyst coating that instantly converts a significant portion of smog and ozone into pure oxygen. Then cleaner, fresher air is accelerated back into the room. The Ionic Breeze has earned the seal of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America because it's been proven to reduce airborne allergens. Don't be confused with our noisy competitors. Even if they look the same, they don't have Ozone Guard. Only the Ionic Breeze has Ozone Guard to help instantly convert smog and ozone into oxygen.
I've tried every air purifier on the market today, and there's only one that meets everyone's needs, and that's the Ionic Breeze.
Order today and we'll give you a $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze and a $39 car Ionic Breeze. Try the Ionic Breeze with Ozone Guard for 2 months, and if you don't love it, send it back. But keep the bathroom and the car Ionic Breezes over a $100 value as a free gift. Call now and get a free 5-year warranty and ask about free shipping.
Call 1-800-493-4500. That's 1-800-493-4500.
Nancy Grace fights for the truth. This former prosecutor speaks out.
Friend, you and I are crossing swords. I disagree with you.
And stands up for victims. Still the fastest growing news show on cable, Nancy Grace. Tonight, 8 Eastern on Headline News Prime.
CNN tomorrow, 3 to 6 p.m. The peak hours of breaking news.
These are pictures we're just getting into CNN.
You see it when we see it. Every afternoon from 3 to 6. It all comes together in the Situation Room. CNN tomorrow, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern.
Closed captioning provided by dermatologist recommended Sarna anti-itch lotion.
Do you suffer from an itch that just won't stop? Get Sarna Original Lotion. Sarna contains 2 medications for prompt itch relief. Suffer no more. Get dermatologist recommended Sarna Lotion.
Now the results of our poll. Overwhelmingly, this audience believes that terminally ill patients should have the right to determine when they end their lives. 4% of you do not. Thanks for being with us tonight. Please join us here tomorrow when we'll have much more on a mysterious disease that has killed more than a dozen people in Toronto. It is not the flu. It's not SARS. What is it? I'll be talking with Dr. Donald Lowe, the chief microbiologist at Toronto's Mount Sinai Hospital, and Governor Ed Rendell of Pennsylvania announcing a bold new energy plan. He's our guest. He'll share his ideas with us. For all of us here, please be with us. Good night from New York. Anderson Cooper 360, starting right now. Anderson.
Lou, thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Could the avian flu be the next worldwide pandemic? And how prepared is the U.S. to deal with the deadly virus? 360 starts now.
Millions of infected birds, 116 people sick, more than half of them now dead. Experts fear the avian flu in Asia could mutate and spread.
We cannot assume that a flu pandemic will remain isolated in one part of the globe.
Fears that millions will die if it hits here. A 360 each week.